Meeting of July 18th to order. Stand to pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This is a joint meeting of the Planning Board Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, and we'll have one member participating remotely at least, and all votes will be taken by roll call. So let's begin with the roll call, please.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Rappaport, sorry, Scavino,
Here.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Okay. Zoning Bylaw Review Committee Chair, Sherry Ellis, is she online yet?
Yes.
Yes.
I
Yes,
saw
she is.
her.
Hi, Sherry.
Sure, there's a request to unmute.
She's probably in her car, so
Okay.
Okay.
she's going to stay on mute, so,
Okay.
You want to go?
Betsy Hughes.
Betsy, yeah?
I saw Mark Donahue, and I don't know if anybody else is on. Is there anybody else on the Mark? I think that's it.
Okay.
It's also, I don't know if it's only me, but it sounds very echoey. So,
Yeah, somebody, it's feeding back in the room there.
Okay.
So it sounds very echoey on the BCAT. Do we want to text Joe Bongiorno?
yeah, I think it might be one of you in the room needs to
Mute.
turn down the volume on your computer.
Okay. Is there anybody from land use?
Nope.
Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, the Town of Burlington will be holding the July 18th, 2024 meeting as a hybrid meeting. The governor issued an executive order on March 12th, 2020, authorizing remote meetings using General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, and extended by Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, including permitting remote meetings and participation until March 31st, 2025.
As always, members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting, but please note while an option for remote attendance and participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast. Members of the public with particular interest with an item on the agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual accordingly. Those seeking to attend remotely may do so via the following. townofburlington.webex.com is the URL. Our access code, our meeting number is 2356-853-9550. The meeting password is 1645. You can also join the WebEx by phone at 617-315-0704. Members of the public looking to participate remotely, raise your hand in the WebEx and staff will send you a request to unmute at the appropriate time. The meeting is being broadcast on BCAT Government Channel, which can be found on Comcast 9, RCN 15, and Verizon 41. We're also streamed on Facebook Live via the BCAT Government Facebook page.
Okay, great. Let's begin with one item that's being continued off the agenda for tonight. May I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take item 1C out of order for discussion purposes.
Second.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes?
Covino.
Yes.
Okay. Item 1C is a discussion amendment to Article 2, definitions, Article 5, dimensional requirements, and Article 9, administration and procedures regarding accessory structures in the RO zoning district, submitted by the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the Planning Board meeting of August 15th, 2024, as requested by the petitioner in an email dated July 17th, 2024.
Second.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes?
Covino.
Yes.
Thank you. So before we begin discussion of town meeting warrant articles, I'd like to read the following statement. This is the first time that we're beginning our board's discussion for September town meeting items, and no votes will be taken tonight. This meeting is intended to be an opportunity for each petitioner to present the proposed zoning bylaw changes they are seeking in September. The purpose of tonight's is to listen and formulate questions which can be addressed at our next meeting on August 15th. As this is only a discussion, not a public hearing, providing time for public comments on each is at discretion of the chair. We have a very long agenda tonight. I want to make sure we give equal amount of time to each petitioner. Any questions, comments, or concerns can be provided by the planning staff and be forwarded to all members of the board. Send an email to planning@burlington.org or call the planning office at 781-270-1640. that said, I'd like to establish a set of rules that will be applied to all members of the public who recognize the speaker at tonight's meeting. All speakers will sign in on a sheet in front of the microphone and state your name for the record. All speakers will be given a strict 3-minute maximum out of respect for everyone's time. Please keep your comments on topic and relevant to discussion. If a previous speaker has stated an opinion that you agree with or do not wish to add on, please refrain from speaking. Repeating has already been said. This is a hybrid meeting, and we appreciate all that attending both online and in person to ensure proper order. Members of the Planning Board, ZBRC, and if anybody from land use shows up, will speak first during the discussion. Once members from these committees have spoken, then I will determine if members of the public are to be recognized. This is a hybrid meeting. Those in person will have the opportunity to speak first, then we'll go on to the folks that are online. Online attendees are muted upon entry, so if you wish to speak, please use the raise hand function, which can be found at the bottom of your control panel. Questions that are asked may be answered either by board members or planning staff. However, there may be certain questions that require further research before responding. If that's the case, please follow up by emailing planning@burlington.org, as well as attending the next planning board meeting of August 15th. All right. Item A is a discussion for the amendment of Article 1013, sign regulations of the zoning bylaw allowing 2 freestanding signs on the town common that is being submitted by the Select Board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Sagarino, Town Administrator, here with Select Board members Joe Morandi, Jim Tigas, and Mike Espejo. Hopefully, this article is somewhat familiar to the boards and committees here. We brought this forward about a year and a half ago to bring to the January 2023 town meeting. And what this is an effort to upgrade the banner signs at the corner of Bedford and Cambridge to a more modern electronic sign in order to communicate with the public here in Burlington. The article before you is exactly the same as the last time, with the exception of the inclusion of some dimensional requirements, and that was something that was pointed out by Ms. Ellis, who is in the virtual meeting, I believe. So we updated that to address that concern from last time. This article went to town meeting in January 2023. There was a very healthy discussion. There seemed to be a lot of interest in the sign, but there was some missing information the town meeting wanted to see, so ultimately they postponed it so that we're bringing it back to them for the September town meeting. Town meeting requested a more formal report from the police department, which we will have for September, as well as they were curious to know what the policy on the use of the sign was going to be. And as I recall it, those were 2 of the larger discussion items that went on at town meeting prior to the postponement. With that, I guess I will turn it over to the boards and committees for any further questions, and be happy to answer what we can.
Okay. I'll start with staff. Staff, any item?
I have no comment, no concerns about this amendment.
Okay. We'll start off with planning board members, and then we'll go over to Betsy and ZBRC and anyone that's in land use. Ernie, let's start with you.
I don't have any comments. I have a comment rather than a question, and it's probably about time I formalize the process of a municipal sign in the town center.
Okay. Ms. LaRue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question is, why 2? It sounds like we're talking about one sign.
Because there is already an existing Town of Burlington sign on the Cambridge Street side that was, I believe, donated by the Chamber of Commerce, so it's,
Okay, so it's one additional,
yes, that's correct.
and the regular Town of Burlington sign will remain as it is?
Yes,
Okay, thank you. So you're calling this an electronic sign. I've seen some renderings. I'm assuming this is not going to look like the highway sign that is often on the right side.
so.
Can you give me an
No,
idea
that's
of
a
what it
good
will look
question,
like?
Barbara. So after the discussion we had at that time with this group here, a committee was formed to sort of like put a little bit of effort into what that sign may look like. At that time, I think it was Ernie and Brenda from planning, it was Joe and Nick from the select board, Kathy Byer from ZBRC, and the name, I'm pretty sure we had a land use as well, but the name is escaping me right now. And they came up with a design that was sort of intended to mimic the town campus here, Town Hall Annex. And Caleb, if you wouldn't mind throwing that up, like I said, Jeff DeBona from the Zoning Board of Appeals as well. And he does some work with signs, and he was able to put this together on his computer. Just for kind of perspective, it looks kind of big, but I think when you stand on that corner, the corner feels really small. So the distance between that traffic pole and the electrical box is actually 20 feet. And
Where's the electronic part, like with?
The white.
The
That whole
white
white
part.
area is
Oh,
gonna be-
that's gonna change if you want, okay.
yeah,
Okay.
so it's not going to be anything motion. It's going to be intended to look like a banner sitting there, but it will have the opportunity to sort of switch over over some time frame. And one of the limitations of the banner system is that you have one banner up there at a time, and this will allow for, multiple messages in a day. Obviously, for safety reasons, we don't want the thing turning, too often, but we will have the opportunity there to use best practices in terms of having multiple banners up there at the same time, multiple messages throughout the day, so.
Okay. Has there been any discussion regarding the process that Mr. Covino alluded to, the process that entities would use in order to get up there? Is it the same process that people use now for the banners?
The board town council provided us with a sample policy that the board will be working through. The process now is relatively informal, and again, it'll be up to the board to decide what they want it to be. Anything sponsored by a town department is eligible to go up there, directly sponsored by a town department or entity. We do have some entities that were sort of, I guess you would call grandfathered in at the beginning because they had been up there for so long, but not necessarily sponsored by a town entity. But, think like People Helping People, those types of things. And like I say, the board is working on that policy. I do think that's a key component because, we want to be fair, want to be consistent. We want to make sure that we control what types of messages go up there. It's obviously not for commercial purposes or anything like that. So, that'll be something that the board will be working on this summer, and it'll be finalized before town meeting. But in terms of the policy, it's, contact the town administrator's office, and we, we put it on the list and try to schedule it. And quite, like I say, quite frankly, there's quite a few requests to use the corner, and there's more requests than there are days for banners typically, so.
I'm familiar. So am I correct in understanding that it would be the select board that approved all messages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Well, I had the question about really like where the text was gonna go, but now I know it's the white.
It's the white, yeah.
The white. It sounds like a great, so we're not gonna match the other one that's already there, that's staying for a while at least,
Yeah, I think that's kind of a permanent, kind of sort of like a welcome to Burlington fixed wooden sign. Was recently updated several years ago with donations from the business community as well. For perspective's sake, the actual electronic part of the sign is 4 by 8, so 4 foot by 8 feet. And that would sort of be represented by the Burlington logo there in the middle with the white TV screen.
Okay. Anything
I'm
else?
all set, I just want to know where the text
All right,
was.
I'll say a few words before I hand it over to ZBRC. What's that? Oh, okay, thank you. I'll hit Jess next. In the language, it says 6 feet by 10 feet. And you said 4 feet by 8 feet is a sign?
The
Just the TV screen part of the sign is 4 by 8, Bill. I think the dimensional requirements are referring to sort of the entire width and height of the sign.
So the entire width of the sign you have is 12 by 16,
Max, yeah.
max. You say the maximum size for the sign face is 6 by 8.
Oh.
6 by 10. At least what I have here,
Yeah.
Maximum, yes.
maximum. So you're saying that that's now 4 by 8?
I would just tell you that the sign there we're looking at that we feel is appropriate for that is 4 by 8.
So, I'm a bit confused. So what, are you changing what's on here then to town meeting, or no?
No, I think those are upward limitations, so I guess in the future, if the town wanted to go 6 by 10, maybe they
You're
could.
just seeing what this proposal is, but it's not what's in here, okay. So how I read this is that both signs could be electronic. Doesn't, right? It's for two signs, and they don't talk about one being electronic, is that correct?
Town council wrote it for us, so like I say, the intention is for one electronic
Okay.
sign right here on the corner.
So if the intention is for one, that's not what it's written here as. So this is, unless I'm wrong, this can be, both signs can be electronic, and they both can be, you know,
One above
12 by
says
16.
One freestanding shall be permitted on each town road,
Except,
Yeah,
except for this.
yeah, I'm
Which we'll have
thinking,
two.
it says it shall be permitted to have 2 freestanding signs.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key word,
The key word here is that except.
except.
Right, now, every town, right, each town property can have one, except what's seen below, the town common wants to have two, and they both can be electronic. So I have problems with electronic anyway. I think that's, talking to my mother today, she goes, that's going to cheapen the town common. I think if you need to put one somewhere else, we talked about this the last time, you know, why put it on the town common? I think what I try to do, and I think to Ms. LaRue's comment, is I go to what problem you're trying to solve, who you're trying to communicate to, who's not getting these messages. To put an electronic one out there, my experience with electronic signs like that, because the technology is going faster and faster, it's going to be obsolete in a couple of years. Right, the ones I've seen, they look bad because now they're aged, because they were there 5 years ago, and now you've got more pixels per screen, and the letters look much nicer on a brand-new one. So, you know, I think it's just a very bad idea. I think, as I look at this, I go, oh, we're going to go back to the future, right? So someone that was in town and they didn't have an electronic sign, and they're going to come here and you see an electronic sign in 5 years or 10 years. Now, per this, maybe we're going to have two, right? Because now you've got two welcome to Burlington signs, one on Cambridge Street and this one here. So I just think the whole idea of this thing, it makes absolutely no sense to me, and I think it cheapens the town. If you want to put it somewhere like where the new fire station is, right? Where that's over near Third Avenue, you got a fancy sign there or something like that, which is not in the center of town. But I'm still trying to get back to what problem you're trying to solve. If you're trying to solve communication that we didn't have before, we've got all sorts of social media. We've got reverse 911. We've got a new rave system with the police station. Yeah, I think that's an issue with me. And then the highway sign there, I want to see that gone long ago, because I think you don't need it with all the social, networking that we've got going on in all this communication out there, to be quite honest with you. Yes, Ms. LaRue.
Just to play devil's advocate, this is not anything to do with whether or not the sign is electronic. I do see value in having a sign there, just as we do now, that advertises important community events, whether it's voting or something at the sculpture park or Celebrate Burlington Day. I find that despite the fact that we have social media, and that's a wonderful way to advertise events, people notice that sign. Everyone's driving by that corner at some point during their week, and it's very effective at getting a message out. That doesn't mean it has to be an electronic sign. It means we should upgrade the look of what's
I
there.
agree 100%.
Certainly,
Yeah.
because it looks decrepit right now. And maybe there's a way we can
If there's a
satisfy
way
both
that folks
needs.
put up, the temporary signs right on to that spot where you're proposing electronic signs, I would be 100% in favor of that. But that's not what it says here. It says two large
Right.
electronic
And
signs.
I am concerned about the fact that I didn't catch that two of the signs could be electronic. We would have to change the wording on this to indicate that the sign that's already there is not being changed to an electronic sign.
Yep, we would be willing to do that. And Mr. Chairman, many residents have very strong feelings about the use of the common and what should be on there. So
Sure.
I'm not totally surprised that there are folks that would
Oh, sure.
not want to sign there.
A lot of folks I've talked to,
Point well
including my mother this afternoon, was opposed to that. And the main reason is say, why would you put that on the? I go, listen, there's somebody that really wants to do it. I don't know if it's you or you or you that really is pushing this sign. And I think and I like the nice kind of classic wood, brick, And if you can kind of stay with that without electronic sign, I would be in favor of that.
You could almost get the electronic sign to look like that, Bill, if you went to some great,
Now, maybe in a couple of years, technology will get there, you know?
you know, you
Right,
could.
yeah. And so I'll go over to Ms. Sutherland, who's, Member Sutherland. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is something that is long overdue. I would echo Ms. LaRue's comments that I think the Common is the right place for a sign. And I completely understand, your concern, Bill, that, we want this to be a long-lasting thing, especially with the investment it will take. I think in reference, though, to our ability to communicate with folks, if we think about typical events that are communicated through the current signs, they are meant for families, and families are decreasing their social media usage rate at a very high rate. And I think most things are on Facebook. Facebook is honestly at this point made for older demographics. So I do think, especially in my line of work, I know that the old school way of kind of out of home, as we call it, is really how we're reaching audiences. And so I do think a sign is absolutely the right way to go for us to engage with, the people of Burlington and even the people outside of Burlington that are traveling through Burlington. I also recognize that we want to continue to have such a vibrant community where there are multiple events going on, and I think we would be restricted in being able to do that with the current way of how we handle signs, which is limited to one at a time. So I just want to voice that I am in extreme favor of this, and I also am putting trust in the select board to choose an electronic version that's not going to be, the old school stereotypical electronic version. If we're making the investment, let's make it in a way where it's not so oblivious that it's electronic. And I think, the process of who you're allowing to advertise on it will be very, very important, because it can certainly open a can of worms. But I just wanted to voice my support for this.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Betsy, if you want to run the
Yeah,
ZBRC?
And then Sherry's also on, but just a couple of things. One is and part of our role is to be exacting on language, so one of my comments is that, which is on the point that Bill made about the having two freestanding signs, one of which is electronic, might be an easy way to handle that particular.
I can address that now and just say the board's intention is for one sign, and we're willing to make that change to make it explicit.
Great. The other is specificity on size. So you have here 6 by 10 for the face of the sign. I understand that's an upward motion, but if your intent is to be 4 by 8, I just think that, people, if you have 6 by 10, people are going to think it's going to be 6 by 10, so.
Or just write up to, just add in up to so that they'll know that
Well,
it can be.
Right, but if you say up to, it's going to be
It
6
is,
by
it
10,
is,
is the
yeah.
point. So if your intent is to make it 4 by 8, I would encourage you to just say 4 by 8, and then you can eliminate that whole discussion if anybody has a concern, just something to consider. And then my other comment was, in looking at the design that you have, which I think is nice, if the town is going to think about standardization of signs in the town, so that any place you go, whether it's a school, whether it's a municipal building, or anything municipal, has the same sort of look. So when you decide what this look is going to be, it might be this is the time to put the, kind of the stake in the ground, saying this is the look for Burlington, and then every new sign that comes up, of which there will be, then you've already designed it. You don't have to worry about it, and then it adds some uniformity and looks planful.
Like we
for
planned it,
our
right.
community. So that would be just a suggestion as you're doing this.
Great.
That's a great idea.
Okay, I don't know if Sherry's still driving, if she wants to.
She's ready. She's
Okay, there she is with her hand, yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I apologize, I don't have a video. I'm in traveling mode, but a couple of questions I had. I've listened, Betsy mentioned a couple of them. I want to say, first off, Sherry Ellis, Chair of the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Sorry. I am in favor of updating the sign. I don't necessarily have any issues with an electronic sign. I do, before I would ever vote on anything, would like to see a policy. And I would also like to see, I appreciate the sketch or the design that you've shown. I will agree that the sizes that you've put on there, thank you for putting sizes on there, are very large. The sign, I believe the last time you talked was kind of based on a sign in Tewksbury. And that sign in Tewksbury is 10 feet by 10 feet overall. And so this is 12 by 16. It's quite large, and I would like to see it reduced in size. I think it would be enormous on that corner. I also think I agree with town council that there should be some setbacks there put in so that it's not right on the corner. Ultimately, I'm not sure that that town corner is the best town corner. I think across the street might be better, but that's not part of the common, it's part of something else. I do have one question, and this is something for, I guess, maybe not the select board, but for planning. The section that we're looking at, the freestanding ground signs, the next section in the bylaw is freestanding message monument sign. And I'm not sure what the difference between the two is, other than one is stated as manually changeable. But if I'm reading our bylaws correctly, we would be allowing 2 of these freestanding ground signs, which I think that should be better specified in all of the regulations there. And then we would also be allowed to have 2 manually changeable letter freestanding signs, and the Board of Selectmen can determine where they go. So it sounds like we have a lot of choices for signs, and I would like to see that clarified as to what and where they would all be. And I guess finally, I do have some grammatical things that I can forward to the planning department as far as freestanding is defined as a term, but it's defining as 2 words, free and standing. So we need to correct those in all of the language. So that's my comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ellis. Ms. Hughes, is there anyone else from,
Yes, we've got Mark Donahue and Sally.
if they would care to raise their
Mark, I
hands?
just sent you an unmute request.
If they want to, you can raise their hands.
Looks like we're good.
Looks like we're good. Okay, is there anybody from land use on there, can you see?
Patricia O'Brien.
Patricia O'Brien.
Okay, and she does not have her hand raised, but we will give her a second if she is looking to comment. Ms. O'Brien, if you have any comments on this, we'll give you a second to raise your hand. Okay, that looks like a no, and that's the only one from land use? Okay. That being said, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the Planning Board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Second.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, and I think the only thing that is the action for the next meeting is just the policy that would be, want to take a look at.
Yeah, we have some wording to
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Wording and policy, okay? I think that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have had a request online if we could try and speak into the microphone to
Bring us
help
a little closer
bring them
to you.
closer to see if that helps the people online.
Okay, great.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, so we are continuing that one, that's the select one. And so we are here. Okay, now we're on to item B. It's a discussion of the amendment of Article 4, Use Regulations, Section 4.3, uses normally accessory to non-residential principal uses of zoning bylaws allowing storage of fuels/petroleum products in the RO zone for public school buildings only, submitted by the Burlington Public Schools. Thank you. If you want to introduce yourself, thank you.
Thank you, Bob Kino, Director of Operations from the school department, and
Can you just speak into the microphone a little closer? I think the folks at home are
Nobody
having...
can hear 'em.
okay.
I know you're not afraid to.
Before, we weren't allowed to touch the mics, right? So, again, thank you all for having me here and giving me the opportunity to speak. The proposed language in front of you all tonight is to amend Section 4.3.2.15 of the zoning bylaw to allow storage of fuel on school property. We discovered this because we are currently exploring 2 projects involving a new and/or replacement generator on a school site, that is Fox Hill and Francis Wyman. All 6 school properties are zoned as residential, and the current bylaw does not allow an emergency does allow an emergency generator, but it must be powered by gas. The proposal would create an avenue to consider diesel generators as an option on school sites. In the past few years, power companies have created incentives to make diesel generators more appealing financially. So, in Fox Hill, for example, there is a little over $1 million in incentives for choosing a diesel generator over a gas generator. The new building is proposed to be all electric, and connecting gas on the site would exempt us from these incentives. So we would not be eligible for these incentives if we were to connect gas to it. The proposal in front of you would restrict the number of gallons of fuel to 1,000 gallons, but there would be a caveat that in front of the planning board, it would be allowed for discussion if more was needed. Now, why 1,000 gallons? Based on a generator size of approximately 500 kilowatts, 1,000 gallons would provide 24 hours of emergency backup at full load, 100% load. If we were to reduce that load, you could obviously extend the backup time to almost 2 full days. In conclusion, this bylaw does not restrict the use of an emergency generator. It just limits its fuel source. This amendment would allow us an option to use an alternative fuel source. So thank you.
Okay, staff?
A couple comments. First is something that I've been thinking about, but then also I talked to Ernie, and he actually had the same kind of thought process, is just going to throw it at the wall and kind of want to feel out what people would think about extending this to all municipal uses as opposed to just specifically for school buildings. You know, if that's something that, you know, would be amenable to people, just to give the town a little more flexibility. Obviously, it's a special permit, so it would go to you guys anyway, and abutters would be notified, so there's that. And then the other question I have is, we're currently working on our emergency management plan, or emergency hazard, or excuse me, our hazard mitigation plan. And they are, you know, it's kind of looking at all the assets we have, and one of the things they talked about was emergency shelters, and there are specific guidelines for what needs to be in an emergency shelter. So I'm wondering, you know, Bob, if you can kind of figure out what the, you know, would this amount of fuel work if a building needed to be used as an emergency shelter, and we wanted to, you know, have it become an official emergency shelter, just so that we can work in that.
Again, I can comment on that just with the information that I have. So a 500 kilowatt generator is large, comparatively speaking, but again is sized medium for about a 100,000 square foot building, and especially one that's all electric. So a smaller size generator would be used, let's say, on some of our other school sites. So this would really be at the higher upper end. But again, 1 to 2 days is really going to come down to any type of, you know, catastrophe that we're in. And as long as we can get fuel to that generator, would be a consideration for an emergency shelter. Again, I believe the high school and also 61 Center Street may be designated as emergency shelters now. But it's something that we definitely can consider with other school sites, just given the large spaces, the gyms, and so forth.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to staff, and Ms. Natola?
Something to think about.
We can get back to you if you want.
Yeah, I'm just
Okay,
thinking
Ms.
about what
LaRue?
he said about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand the benefits to implementing this at the Fox Hill site where you're building a new school, and there are additional financial incentives to do this. What is the reason for doing it at Francis Wyman?
Same scenario, right? So the power companies will actually provide some incentives based on the purchase price of a diesel generator as well.
Okay, so even though it's not changing the school itself, there are financial incentives for switching to a diesel generator?
Right, so similar to converting, let's say, your heat at your house to a heat pump, there are some incentives to purchasing it, not the same quantity of incentives as obviously the Fox Hill proposal would be, because that would be no gas at all. But there's still incentives to reduce gas and obviously bring on a new type of fuel source, whether it's electrical or obviously diesel.
Okay. The other question I have is, well, it's a question and a comment. First of all, I want to know if the neighbors to these properties have been informed about this proposal. Has anyone informed the neighbors at both Francis Wyman and Fox Hill? No.
Well,
I understand that would probably happen during the special permit process?
no, this would allow this to happen, and it doesn't specify Francis Wyman or Fox Hill. This would be changing the ballot to allow for any
Any school.
school building.
And is
But
this
when
by
they
right?
came to install it, they'd need a special
Special
permit,
permit,
right?
right.
Correct,
So the informing would happen at that stage?
correct.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is I strongly suspect that the neighbors in probably both these sites, but definitely at Fox
Francis.
Hill, are not going to like this idea. Now, I understand the reasons for it, and maybe they will come around when they understand the financial incentives, but at various meetings that I've attended and discussions that I've had, some of the neighbors there are complaining about lights. This is a lot more jarring than just lights that are on. So I'm a little concerned that neighbors may object to this. And this is not something that you can answer now, but I would just encourage you to have a backup plan in case the neighbors put forward very strong protest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Covino?
Sure. In regards to Barbara's comment, I think one thing that people have to understand is this would only run, I hope, in an emergency, Barbara, I think, right?
They go
test
through,
it
they go
every
test every week.
Oh, in testing every week, how long does that test go on? Half an hour?
15 minutes.
It depends. So we can set the cycle. It could run once per month. It could run bi-weekly or every week. And then depending on how frequently it's run, we could adjust the cycle on that depending on the load. You know, so we could actually reduce this to as little as 1 hour per month.
Okay,
And-
that's good
and-
to know.
And second to that, obviously, if you throw enough money at anything, you can usually solve it. And in my former life, when we had a construction project at a hospital site, we were made to install what they call hospital mufflers. And 50 feet away, you couldn't hear that generator or drill rig run, really, so.
Very
There is a way to do it. And thirdly, I guess, in relation to Liz's comment about our conversation, I think it would be, number one, our Board of Appeals doesn't grant use variances. They're not empowered to
supposed
do
to.
that.
Right.
So therefore, if there was another municipal site in Burlington that wanted a generator, they couldn't get it, period. There is no way to do it if they're in an RO zone and they're not a school if it passes. The zoning bylaw would have to be changed. So I would like to see this applied to all municipal sites, because as Barbara stated, there would be a special permit requirement, so that means the surrounding houses or residences would get to voice their concerns then. And if I can, to staff. Liz, the pump stations all have generators.
That is correct, because they are considered by the state to be like, they're exempt,
Oh, like
essentially.
child.
Yeah, they're an exempt-
Okay, they're an
exempt-
exempt use. Okay.
So does it make a lot of noise?
Say again?
It makes a lot of noise?
A diesel generator can make a lot of noise. I mean, they're quieter now than they used to be,
Right.
but you can also make them quiet with noise baffles and
Installation,
mufflers, and
yep.
all sorts of things, but
Well, I'm very interested to hear about these hospital muffler
hospital,
things that
they
you.
were called the hospital exhausts.
Okay. Because maybe we can find a way to attenuate the noise and eliminate that problem.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not going to eliminate it for everybody, especially that person who has very good hearing and keeps their windows open, you know? But that's all, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sutherland?
I'm good, thank you, though. I think all the members raised important points.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was on I am on the Fox Hill Committee. We've talked about this. I proposed electric, but they said they need to have the diesel to get that $1 million. And I'm sure, Mr. Cooney, you're looking at a natural gas one versus a diesel one is about the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
just-
could I just add a comment to that, if you want to finish your question first?
Yeah, and then I had said, if you go with an electric one, would that offset the cost, of either continuing to fill it over time versus just the electric? You've got batteries that don't necessarily need that same kind of
Electric what, Bill?
electric battery storage.
Yeah.
Like a battery wall type thing. Oh,
Yeah. Go ahead, thank you.
Yeah, no, I just want to comment. So obviously, this amendment isn't in particular to a generator. It's really about the fuel source. So I think irregardless of a generator would be allowed in the zone, whether it's a gas or a diesel generator, is still going to produce noise, and there's still requirements for height and attenuation that we would have to meet anyways. So I think regardless of, that would still be something that would come before planning, come before the building department, and we would have to meet those requirements. Again, this is strictly about the fuel source, as to whether or not we are supplied with gas constantly, or whether or not we have a diesel source tank. That's the only thing that the amendment would really be addressing right now, not the size of the generator, not where it's located on the property, and whether it's gas or diesel.
And again, electric, I'm just back a napkin here, so if you have 1,000 gallons and you replace that every couple of years, as you have, testing and maybe some use, so you do, did you do those numbers, let's say 4,000 a year over, what, 50 years?
So
Turns out to be-
it would burn approximately about 40 to 60 gallons, depending on our testing frequency per month, right? So that is something that would happen frequently. Now, if we were in a state of emergency and needed to withdraw full power from it, 1 day of 24-hour use of full load capacity on a 500 kilowatt generator would run through 1,000 gallons.
Okay.
So
with the cost of that over the lifetime, you think this would be for the school was 50 years, what kind of estimate did you do that it might cost just for the fuel itself?
approximately the same. It's almost, I don't want to say a net zero, I shouldn't have even said that term, but they're pretty approximate towards each other when you look at a gallon of gas and then the supply of the gallon plus the installation offset. For the life expectancy of a generator is somewhere in the 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
You know, the installation of the gas plumbing actually eats into a large portion of any profits that you could consider with the cheaper gas per gallon rate.
So minimum, it's going to be 6,000, 6,000, is that right? 6,000 gallons per year.
Per year?
Yeah, if it's 50, if 50 per month, right?
On the high, okay?
6, right, with the zeros there. So then you multiply that times, let's say, today, $4 per gallon. Right?
Well,
Did you do any of that stuff?
600, 50 times 12 is 600.
Sorry, 600 times 4 down. So did you do that math over, let's say, 25 years versus an electric one? Does that make sense? Because you're getting that, everyone's looking at the $1 million, I think is what you're looking at. Did you do the numbers to see if just for the emergency backup for electric versus everyone get their eyes on the prize on the money? If you done that, the numbers?
We did, I don't have them in front of me, but installation with the routing of the gas software and every type of gas hardware that's needed for plumbing, it's approximately $80,000 to $100,000 just in that initial installation alone. The cost per gallon is relatively close, let's say within $1. So, I mean, we're talking close to 100,000
I'm thinking
gallons to make up that difference.
electric, to kind of compare that to electric. What, that might be a backup for electric.
Say again?
Electric. compared to the numbers for an electric.
Yeah, so I don't have the cost in front of me for an electric battery backup. Like I said, that's not what the intent of the bylaw amendment in front of you is, so I don't
I
have that
understand.
number. Yeah.
But I'm just saying it may not be needed if you did the calculation, said, you know what, we're saving more with an electric backup than we are with the $1 million we get for the diesel. That's where I was kind of coming from.
Okay, it's something I can look into,
Yeah,
but I don't have that
that'd be great,
information, so.
And, you know, technology is certainly going to change on the electric side with diesel and natural gas one, so there may be some nuances there. Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Betsy on land use. I mean, on ZRBC, excuse me. Betsy,
CBRC, yeah. I just have a clarification question. So does this mean that you are going to change this so it's generators for municipal buildings and not just school buildings? Is that where we are?
I mean, yes.
I know the request was made. Is that something
I
that?
don't think a decision was made.
No.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean-
just wondering whether that's something that,
No, the intent is to allow an avenue. Right now, we couldn't find an avenue or indicate one that would allow it.
Okay.
So it's not an option on the table. And so as far as pricing, like I said, in these two projects that we're looking at, we really have one avenue. We really have not been considering battery backup as a strong option. I know that I have priced a battery backup solution, let's say for the high school, and it was relatively expensive, which priced us out of it. But I do expect battery pricing to come down, so that's something that maybe in the future we would look at. But between the two options, relatively, again, if it's an existing installation, the pricing is about the same, diesel versus gas. But like I said, right now, there's no avenue for us to even consider diesel, given the bylaw the way it's written.
yeah, sorry, maybe I misspoke. I'm talking about the amendment itself.
Okay.
Is for generators for school buildings, and the request was, should it be changed to generators for municipal buildings? Is that something that you know, that would be, you think would be possible to change it, or is that just, how do you react to that? That's, I
I
guess.
think we would be interested. I would obviously bring this back to my school committee. This was submitted by the school committee on behalf of the schools, and I can't speak for any town properties. But if it would benefit the town and us being part of the town, then we would clearly appreciate that support, so.
Just speaking for myself, not for CBRC, I think the more that we can, if we have these things in one part of the town, but it really is applicable to another, and we just look at ourselves as like one big community as opposed to each individual section, I think it would really work well for everybody. So that's my, like, advertisement for let's all work in the same direction.
Yes, staff.
Mr. Chair, I just have one, just thinking ahead and thinking how this, you know, having this be for all, you know, town of Burlington-owned properties might be beneficial, is that I know that for the police station, when they're renovating it, they need to have flex space for while it's being rebuilt, and so they're thinking about the old water treatment plant on Middlesex Turnpike, and that is in an RO zone, and I have to imagine that they're going to need some type of generator that's probably there for more than a year, that will
Sure.
probably be diesel. And so, you know, just thinking about those types of things, it just allows the town to be flexible and, you know, I don't know.
Sure.
Just gonna
Yep.
throw it out
Yep.
there.
Absolutely. Looks like Ms. Ellis has her hand up.
I'm sure she does.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Shari Ellis, Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. I wanted a couple of clarifications. I was involved in some of the discussions with the school committee on this because it was brought to my attention. It's zoning bylaws. Currently, storage and disposal of oils and fuels, petroleum products is not allowed in residential, which means that every person that has, every family, single-family home that has a residential oil tank is in violation of the bylaws. Likewise, anybody who has any diesel generators or things like that are already in violation. So my thought is that this needs, in addition to the schools, which I also believe it should be municipal as well as schools, for the reason the planning director stated, this bylaw should really be changed to fix the problem that we have, if I'm correct in my reading of this. I think the discussion we had at the schools was that perhaps changing this to a yes is allowed by right with a very minimal amount of fuel, whatever a single-family home would need for fuel, and then above that, it would not be allowed except for municipal use. So there's a couple of issues there, and then I'm also concerned about the disposal. What does the disposal of that fuel mean? Does removing it off the property, is that the disposaling it into the ground? So that's a different issue than the actual storage, which is what we're really talking about here. So those were kind of my questions and clarifications for this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Do you see anybody else with their hand raised?
Yes, Patricia O'Brien, you're being sent a request to unmute right now.
Ms. O'Brien from Land Use.
Thank you, Chair. Patricia O'Brien, Land Use. Three things. One is I support wholeheartedly the idea of expanding this to the municipal properties in town. I also support strongly the idea of investigating whether or not 1,000 gallons is actually enough storage, given the rate of disasters in various parts of the country that are completely, seemingly unpredictable at the moment. A 2-day or a 1-day coverage is not going to be enough. And I think the idea of using it as an emergency shelter for those purposes, even given, say, the heat these past few days and trying to house people at Center Street for just a day, it's not really quite enough for our residents, and we need to be more mindful moving forward that this isn't going to get better anytime soon, not certainly in our lifetimes, but to provide more housing and more robust services for those who are vulnerable to the heat and to these kinds of conditions. So I support the idea of investigating whether 1,000 is enough, and then possibly understanding more about just having excess capacity, even if it's not used. In other words, something might be coming, get a delivery, get an extra 1,000 gallons in advance, the same way you kind of bottle water if you think you're going to have an issue from a water perspective. The third piece is it's not directly related to storage as far as I know, but the question about the generator and just making sure that it's the best generator in terms of mitigating any kind of greenhouse gas emissions that come off of the system when we are burning it, even just for the testing purposes. I know it releases pretty potent greenhouse gases, and we should be mindful of controlling those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Okay.
I just want to
Of course,
add
yes, Ms. O'Toole.
one added thing. Now that Fox Hill, I know we're talking about municipal build, but on Fox Hill, at least now, the new building is away from the neighbors where they're building it. The people on Vincent are closer to where the school is now, but at least the school is going far away from the neighbors, just to keep in mind. And the next set is like they're at a distance on both sides, like that. I'm not sure where those woods are, if there's a lot of people in back there.
In Wilmington, yeah, I don't know.
In Wilmington, I'm
Yeah.
not sure how close they are, but the rest of the people are at a distance. I just wanted, they're further than where they are right now. I just wanted to.
I think you might find Michael Drive being close to it now, right over
It
that
is,
way.
but there's still
Yeah,
a big thing of woods
Between them, yeah.
between them. There's a long woods there, because I walked that lot
Mm-hmm.
around there, and it's further than you might think.
Mr. Ship,
Yes, of course, Mr. Covino.
is Tony done?
Yes, yes.
I don't know if there's a way to actually put it in the article that, something that says before replacing a generator, if we allow them, that alternate energy sources be examined, because I know
Explored, yeah.
battery technology is moving right along.
Very good point.
Right now, if it was the same type battery that's in a car, I might be against it, because there's some very heavy fire concerns about that. If
Yeah,
they do
right.
catch fire,
Yeah.
they're almost to the point where some fire departments have found large dumpsters, picked up the car and put it in the dumpster full of water to keep it from burning.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't think that battery technology is quite up to
No, not yet.
Could be, but
Getting there.
in the future, it could be.
Yep.
I like that idea, though, that upon replacement, other sources should be considered.
Mr. Chair, the only other comment that I would have is I know that we've, talked a lot about the emergency shelter, and if this is enough for an emergency shelter, I think that reaching out to our emergency manager, so that's the fire chief is our emergency manager, and, I'm sure that the state has guidelines for what constitutes one. I know showers is one thing, which the high school has. I think you have to have your own fuel source, so diesel, but what those parameters are so that, if we're going to have numbers in here, that the 1,000 matches what the state requirements are.
Great,
So just
great idea.
making sure that that jives.
I don't know if I could just comment.
Okay?
Motion.
If I could just comment and add to that. So I think the way that it's worded is the first 1,000 gallons would be in right to, and then above that, so there would be an opportunity if we were looking at, or if other municipal buildings and this were accepted, to look at something above 1,000 gallons.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Second.
Gaffney?
Yes.
Sutherland?
Yes.
Natola?
Yes.
LaRue?
Yes.
Cavino?
Yes.
Okay, we've got item D. Item D is a discussion amendment to Article 3, Districts, Article 4, Use Regulations, and Article 10, Miscellaneous and Special Regulations of the zoning bylaws, allowing recreational marijuana dispensaries in a new marijuana retail zoning overlay district. This is submitted by Alex Rutfield, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 5, on behalf of Will Seagard.
Okay, I'll share it. It's okay. Don't worry.
Okay? If you could introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Alex Rutfield. I'm, as they said, town meeting member of Precinct 5. I'm submitting the article. Will Seagard is a town resident who works in the marijuana retail industry. So the goal of this article is to create a zone overlay that will allow us, people to set up marijuana retail shops in town. As most of you probably know, Massachusetts legalized recreational marijuana a while ago. But the specifics of zoning and selling was still kind of left up to the towns. Burlington considered it in 2017, allowing retailers, but they held back. There was concerns that maybe there wasn't enough data or research yet. And since then, what we've seen is actually pretty promising. It can actually be beneficial to the towns. Towns have typically seen lower crime. Contrary to the stigma around marijuana use, that's actually lower crime because these retailers need heavy surveillance around them due to the state regulations. So that heavy surveillance is obviously a good deterrent. They've also found that because localities are allowed to give a 3% tax to these businesses on top of the normal property taxes, that they've gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars of extra revenue just from having these businesses. Since the town currently doesn't allow these retailers, people who use marijuana in town recreationally, they either at best go and get it from another town, giving them the tax dollars, or at worst, to find illegal ways to get it closer to home. So by introducing these articles, we believe, especially since there's concerns about declining commercial value due to more people work from home, allowing this type of business that's due to the regulations is going to be difficult to do from online or working from home, that could actually be beneficial to the town.
Okay. Thank you. So we actually have what the overlay district looks like. Is that up there right now?
I'm
And how-
trying to get it to, it's
does that look like?
being a little slow. Bear with me. So there it is.
What color are we looking at?
So it's the hash, it is the hashed, the black hash marks.
Okay, so Just to orient us, that's,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, so where they have the hash marks here. this is
Oh,
now-
okay.
That's Caldor Mall?
This is the
Middlesex
Calvert Mall
Commons,
area. This is Seven Springs,
Okay,
Blanchard Road. We cross here over to Burlington, that's Burlington Mall. This is the other part of Burlington Mall. I think this is over where.
That's where Sears was.
Yeah, that's Cafe Nero.
Yep.
And then over here is that, where
Plaza,
Kohl's
yeah.
and Staples and all of that is.
On the opposite side of Middlesex Turnpike, is that where,
That's-
that's Barnes and Noble, or is it the property
This looks
closer?
like
to-
it's where the new steakhouse is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Not Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, it goes
The
all,
old Burlington Dodge.
yep.
Yes.
Yeah, this is in the back part, there's like that old hamburger place.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
yes,
okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yas chicken, we had some Yas chicken the other night, it's delicious.
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you for describing that. Staff comments?
So I think that from a staff perspective, I've done a little bit of research on other communities and what they do and kind of comparing their bylaws to what this is. And I've also had discussions with people who've worked in Tingsboro, and Tingsboro was one of the first communities to adopt this. So, this doesn't kind of match those. I've looked at, Newton and Belmont, and there are some, it doesn't meet the kind of standards that those municipalities have, and I don't think it goes far enough to protect the town from, lawsuits or just making sure that everything is held up to a high standard. So, I think that, if the town were to kind of coalesce around this idea and kind of, work to collaboratively with different boards and commissions and everybody to come up with something, if this is a concept that they believe that people of the town would like to see happen, I think that that's something that, we would, as staff, we would pursue. But at this time, I'm uncomfortable. I'm afraid that it's my professional opinion that this doesn't go far enough. So that's,
Okay, thank you, staff. We'll start with the planning board. Ms. Sutherland?
Thank you. To be honest, was kind of taking some time to digest. And sorry, I'm looking over here, not at you, because I have my documents up over here. And I think a lot of the changes that are requested, I'm a little concerned, I think similar to what staff said around, do we have enough detail in the language? I know a lot of towns have been doing a lot of work to adopt and enable this. I think there's a lot we can learn, and I would love to do some more due diligence to understand that. I think I'm also curious. I think we just have a town meeting member present and representing, right? And I'm curious, has there been a legal review of these recommendations? And just, I think I would like to also understand, I'm a data person, so I'd love to understand information behind kind of like how we would be equating the benefit to the town based on, our demographic makeup. I think I generally have just a lot of, I'd like to spend much more time on the information. I don't feel like I have enough information at this time.
Okay. So, just to be clear, you're looking for other benefits to the town, which I think the applicant said there's lower crime. And do you have any data on that? Like, with other towns that had it, you had crime beforehand, crime afterwards?
So Will, can you speak to that a bit more?
No, you would,
I guess I'd love to understand like what data and information is out there that towns have taken to understand like the baseline before, baseline after, whether that be crime, whether that be maybe there's, the revenue or the tax incentive. I mean, I just would love to understand what are the before and afters and like what really contributed to that over what time period. I'd also love to understand do we have a position from the police on this?
So, Will Seagard, we have sent you a request to unmute. You're going to have to accept our unmute request on the WebEx in order to speak.
Are we ready for it?
Not really. That's okay. Well, so if you can't get there, that's fine. So we don't need that tonight. So that would be kind of actions for you to come up with.
Mr. Chair.
Excuse me a second. Just, Ms. Sutherland, anything else?
Not right now. I might have additional questions as I digest what other questions the other planning board members might have.
Ms. Natola?
I could be mistaken, but I believe this issue came up one town meeting, and there was a lot of information on it, and I know a lot of residents had a lot of serious questions at the time regarding this, and it involved a lot to do with their children and things of that nature, but it really did come up. I can't remember which town meeting, but do you remember it coming up?
Ms. LaRue,
Okay.
please.
Actually, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a little historical perspective. The reason why Burlington has a moratorium is because when this question came before us at the state level, it passed at the state level. The state at that time told municipalities, if your individual town voted in favor of this new law, then that's it, it's done. If your town voted against it, then those municipalities had the option to put in place moratoriums or other restrictions. So Burlington residents as a whole voted against that law. So the planning board at that time brought forward the moratorium. A lot has changed since then. There's still a lot of questions. It's my personal opinion that this is a question that, although it will be before us to make a recommendation to town meeting, it is town meeting's decision, because we can't really do another townwide vote. And the closest thing we have to that is town meeting's vote. So I do think eventually it's going to end up there, but there's a lot of questions. I have a lot of questions. I don't want to take over Tony's.
No, I
Go
did,
ahead.
but I just
Keep on
remembered
going.
there were several questions.
Yes.
And I really would be interested in what the police department had to say about it, with the crime and everything. I think they could answer a lot of this, Board of Health, as to a lot of those questions would need to be answered. I'd also like to know on the other side, for sickness for people, is it more accommodated? There's a lot of questions that need to be asked and answered, but I do remember it coming up, and I do remember it being a lot of people standing up having issues with it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tony. And Ms. LaRue?
Thank you. So I have a lot of questions, and I'm not expecting answers tonight. It's more like I want to sort of put all these questions out there because they're things that we're all going to have to consider as this moves forward. So I'm not expecting answers all at once. So one of the questions I know that came up 7 or 8 years ago, there were concerns about the fact that these were at that time all cash businesses. So I'm curious to know if these businesses can now accept credit cards, or if they're still all cash businesses. If they are just cash and debit and not credit, or even if they allow credit card, I'm curious to know what the percentage of sales are, cash versus other forms of payment. Because I know that was a concern of the police at the time, concerns regarding all cash businesses being more likely to be robbed. So that's a question. I would like to talk at some point about the community benefit. My understanding is that there's usually a 3% community impact fee. So I'd like to understand better what those numbers are. And also, and Mr. Seagard may know the answer to this at a future meeting when he's here, typically how do other towns use their community benefit dollars. I'm curious to know what kinds of programs they're used for. It's my understanding that they have to be reasonably related.
I think that Will is trying to call in.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
He
keep on
doesn't
going.
have to
Yeah,
answer
yeah,
today.
It's okay.
So they have to,
Can you mute him? Thank you.
He's unmuted right now.
okay.
Can you mute?
He wants you to mute him, not unmute
Please.
him.
He's
Oh, okay.
already
okay.
muted in the
So
system.
they have to be reasonably related. I don't really know exactly what that means, so I think it would be interesting to find out how other towns have used that money, because it could be, that would help us to understand what the benefits could be to us. Then other questions were, and this is again in relation to the cash business, do most of these businesses use courier services? And if so, are they armed or unarmed? Are these Brinks trucks, or are these just some guy in an Uber? I don't know. I'd like to know more about that, just to make sure that they're safe.
That's for the cash?
For the cash or
transaction?
for the product.
Okay.
Yeah.
Delivery.
You had mentioned, when you were speaking, Mr. Rutland? Rutfield, sorry, that there's, one of the benefits is because of heavy surveillance, there's a reduction in crime. Who's surveilling, and who is bearing the cost of that surveillance? So that's another question. Then I have some questions for staff.
Yes.
Given the size of this proposed overlay.
Big overlay, yeah.
Is it possible for us to limit the number of such businesses, or could it be?
So that is actually already in this.
Oh, okay.
So it's there's, in here, it's 2% of liquor licenses.
20%.
20% of the liquor licenses in the town.
So what do those numbers come out to? In the whole town, not just in the district?
No, in the whole,
Okay.
in the whole town. I don't know what off the top of my head. I think around 2, under 5, definitely.
Okay. So
Definitely.
we'll have to figure those numbers out, too.
Yeah, and so if you guys could figure that out and have that would be helpful.
So you're talking all restaurants and bars and
Everything, yeah.
There must be 100, that maybe.
Wegmans
There's going to be
and,
more than 2.
Yeah, it would be more
More than two. So we need to
Oh, so
look
it's
at
only
that.
package stores?
package.
And not wine and beer only establishments.
So, I'm hearing from our economic development director that it's
Well,
2%
That's
of.
fine, let's get the answer, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get the answer. One last question for staff, and what, more like a request. Could you send us, you said you've looked at some of the other towns and what their bylaws look like. If you could pick the one or two that you think are very well done, could you please forward those to us?
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Covino?
Since the town already voted no on this, and although that was 7 years ago and mindsets may have changed, I think that I would like to see what the cost, but the benefit is, not just the cost benefit, town. You say crime goes down, as Barbara was saying, how, where. In other words, where did your data come from, and could you substantiate it? Not right now, obviously. Next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covino. I just had a couple of things. I was looking at the buffer zone measurements, and it appears that they're at the geometric center of the entrance of the marijuana establishment, and then to the entrance of maybe a school or a church or something like that. I think, isn't, to staff, isn't that typical that you do it from the actual outline of the parcel and not the center?
Yes, and
of the
we can
entrance?
speak to that. Staff actually did have a meeting with Mr. Seagard on Tuesday, and we actually talked about this specifically, and, because not only, it's, using the geometric center would be extremely hard to enforce, because our system, you would have to
What
use
would
a
it be?
GIS-based system to do that, and, those aren't, that costs money,
Mess it
and you'd
up.
have to hire somebody to do that. So, all of our town systems already use, we can easily do a buffer from the lot lines. And so I believe that Mr. Seagard, he hasn't sent, we don't have that copy yet, but he is planning on providing an updated copy with those changes. So
Okay,
he did.
thank you.
He did.
So that's consistent with other towns, they use the the
That is
property line.
what I have found, yes.
Okay, yeah. And just with the overlay itself, I think if the town decides to do this, and, there's some discussion within the town, if we want to go forward, I think we would want to decide where that overlay exists versus any particular applicant coming in and saying, here's where it should be all down Middlesex Turnpike and then hang a right on Mall Road. If you look at other, kind of overlays that may be similar to that, they're very, very unique into certain places where the town has done that themselves versus a particular applicant. So I think, conceptually, if we're going to go forward, I think the town itself should probably write the bylaw and come up with the zoning overlay that the town believes is the best for the town. Yes, Ms. LaRue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I forgot to mention that I did have a quick discussion with the police chief and requested that if this were to move forward, or if and when it moves forward, we would like to have input from the police department as to what their concerns are so that we can build mitigations into the bylaw. So he would be very happy to work with us on that.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Hughes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have quite a few comments, so I'm just going to run through them. I also have a copy of this, so I can provide it to you, so you don't have to take notes, because I knew I'm going to throw a lot at you, okay? Just want to try to help you, Alex. Okay, in general, just a couple of comments. The town voted 55% to 45% not to legalize this in our town. It was really pretty overwhelming, and I think a lot of people were surprised. Currently, there are 26 retail marijuana stores within 10 miles of here, Billerica and Woburn being the closest. There are 5 retail stores that deliver to Burlington, and people can get marijuana delivered to their front door if they want it as of today. So I question the need of the town and its residents to actually even have this at all. I understand Mr. Seagard's need because he's going to make some money, but in terms of what the benefit to the town. I had a question about how many liquor licenses there are in Burlington, but you're going to figure that one out. As to the map, there are companies and residences along the Middlesex Turnpike Blanchard Road area, and some of you may remember me from that particular discussion of the marijuana dispensary. They wanted to put on Blanchard Road across from Mary Cummings Park, which was the first thing I ever got involved with in this town. Not only neighbors, but businesses were very much against having any sort of marijuana establishment near their organizations. They didn't want it in walking distance, so their employees could go down and grab a few gummies and come back and try to, solve the problems of the world. This was CEOs. It was owners of developments, developers, and they had no interest in having marijuana establishments within walking distance of their organizations. Speaking as an HR professional for over 30 years, I can tell you that that was a big problem in certain areas when that became legal. And I know that this is an area on Blanchard where we have the new I district, and we're trying to get biotech and labs and all of those things to come in there. It will not help if we have marijuana there. In terms of the detail of the bylaw, the page numbers are wrong, so you need to figure it says like page 3 of 2, 4 of 2, so that's just a nit. The language on in section 10.6.2, you added words or CCC, but it was not highlighted that it was in addition to it. You add a purpose and intent, which is really kind of not normally what is done there. I'll give you all of these. You eliminated the nearest parcel boundary, and I don't understand why you did that. I think you need to keep it the way it was, rather than trying to, I understand that what you're trying to do is get it so that you're not as restricted, but I think that is something that should stay. I suggest that we add youth recreational facilities. I know we're looking at different kinds of things. It talks about children. I think people might question, well, how old is a child? And if you use words like youth, I think we might want to consider that, and other towns have done that. And add parks. like Mary Cummings Park is a place where families are, but it's not covered in this. And again, when this was written, we were not anticipating retail being acceptable in the
Right.
town. So I think we need to really look at where we're going to allow these to be.
So this is just, my understanding here, this was not a new, this was just one for medical that was slightly modified?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha,
yeah.
gotcha.
They're taking the medical one and
Oh,
applying it to
okay.
retail. So I'm saying we need to, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
On section 10.6.4.2, the planning board can waive the buffer zone. I think the intent is to have a non-subjective criteria so as not to create any sort of inequalities or putting anybody on the spot later. So I think that needs to be added. In 10.6.4.4, it talks about entrance to entrance. I think this is what you guys were just talking about, but I didn't quite understand your language. As to where they congregate from front door. And I think all the wording that was proposed in this is to reduce the amount of the buffer zone so that they can be closer. And so I understand why he wants to do it. I just don't think we should allow that to happen. In 10.6.7, it talks about a passive renewal subject to review for compliance on an annual basis by the planning board. I think that was okay when it was medical marijuana that everybody was talking about. This is not that. We also didn't have the Cannabis Control Commission at that point in time. It's there now. And based on best practice of neighboring communities, we need to spend more time on provisions that were not anticipated when this was written. So I actually did some homework and looked at a bunch of other towns, the Woburn and Billerica, because they're so close, I figured I'll home in on them. And there are a lot of omissions, and I'm going to list it in terms of things that are not part of this bylaw that I feel the town needs to consider. This has been rushed and misses many of the components that other communities have thought through. Other communities have made mistakes, and they've come back and fixed them. And I think we should benefit from their errors and not repeat them in our community. So just a few things that I have noticed is that there's no permitting section. Barbara, what you were talking is a host community agreement, and it's 3%. It's a 3% that goes back. It's an impact fee. And that is supposed to offset the potential costs of hosting a retail marijuana RMV, but the expenses have to be tracked. So the town's going to have to figure out what body is going to be responsible for tracking. Additionally, the windfall seems to be a potential mirage because there have been many cities and towns now are being sued by marijuana establishments, telling them that we didn't cause you any undue harm. Show me how we cost you more money. And as a matter of fact, Uxbridge just had to pay $1.6 million to the marijuana establishments in their town because they lost that case. So I think we need to, this 3%, which everybody's talking about, and there's another town that's being sued now by 3 marijuana establishments for that 3% to be returned. So let's not get seduced by that number because I think it is probably not real. I think we should have an annual operating permit and an initial and ongoing fee to be established. This is something both Woburn and Billerica do. They have them established and managed by the Board of Health and the Board of Selectmen. The police are involved in the planning board. So who does it, I don't know. They also say the permit must be displayed. Proof of current dispensary agent registration has to be provided. Licenses are valid only for 1 year, and they renew every year on January 1st. They pay a fee every year. We have to make sure that that's in. That no permits or licenses can be transferred. And then should be a section on requirements and prohibitions. For example, you must be located in a permanent and not a mobile facility. That's what Woburn has because people were popping up in trailers with these things. That all sales must be conducted within the building. No marijuana shall be smoked, eaten, or otherwise consumed or ingested on the premises by the retailer. No self-serving vending machines are permitted. I guess there are some where you can go in and just do like the old cigarette machines, but those aren't permitted. No marijuana retailer or in the building that contains any residential units. I didn't even think of that one, but they did it, I think, because of that new mall they have in Woburn. Cannot be located in the premises for which an alcoholic beverage license has been issued, so you can't have a marijuana, what are they called, where you have a pot bar? You get pot, they have them in New York City. Not that I've been to one, but I know. No drive-up windows, drive-through, or curbside pickup, which I think is something that obviously they learned about. Can't be within 1,000 feet of another marijuana retailer. This is getting away from the strips. I don't know if you've been in some towns where they have like a strip, marijuana, marijuana.
Yeah.
Welcome to Burlington, marijuana, marijuana, marijuana. Limitation of the store size to 5,000 feet, because some of them, I guess, can go really large. That an operating permit conditioned on the registration approval from the Cannabis Commission and the DPH as required by state law. That's in the requirements. They have to have a security plan that must be submitted to the Board of Health, the police, et cetera, so that's planned in advance. There's a limitation on signage, including restrictions on the use of images related to marijuana and its paraphernalia. No products other than marijuana can be sold at the retail dispensary. Those are just some of the requirements that some other towns have. In terms of parking and transportation, that there has to be a submission of an operations and logistics plan, so the police have that. Building director as well, prior to applying for a permit. And there are numerous components of this plan. I just didn't want to bore you all by reading them, but you can read them for yourselves if you want to go and look at the Woburn ones.
And so the logistics part of it is the delivery of the material itself,
Yeah.
the cash transaction?
There is probably A through T of requirements. It's a long list. Another is that all products must be prepackaged off-site. No packaging or repackaging of marijuana or marijuana products shall take place at the retailer. That's one of the things they learned from a problem they had. And requirements for annual reports to be filed with the Board of Selectmen, Police, and the Planning Board. That the special permit issued is not transferable or assignable. Obviously, consumption of marijuana in the workplace and public places is prohibited, especially if these are going to be located near workplaces. They wanted to make sure to reinforce that it's not okay to go do this in your workplace. And then there's a section on enforcement and penalties, and the right for any town body to come inspect, and defining who's responsible for compliance with all sections of the bylaw. So I'm not an expert on this stuff. I just did some homework. And as I said, I'll give you a copy of what I found. But Liz mentioned that what you have proposed is not sufficient to protect the town and the citizens of our town. And I think if you want to move this forward, in no way it can go for September, in my opinion. It's not even close to ready. And a lot more work needs to be done. And by the way, this is the graphic of the marijuana stores within 10 miles of where we're sitting right now. So if you can see that, there's a lot.
Can I have a copy too?
I'll give it to you.
Okay.
I just printed one.
So that graphic looks like it's concentrated, and then there's a
Yeah.
bit of a gap, and then it's...
And this is just the sponsored ones. I just did a search. And some of these deliver, and some of them don't. So you can go through and see where you want to go, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes. Wow, quite a mouthful.
I'm sorry for taking so
No, that's really excellent. Maybe to staff, in a question when Ms. Hughes was talking, if we have some delivering today, is there a way for us to tax those incoming deliveries?
To what? Tax what?
Tax the incoming deliveries to Boston, to Burlington.
I
So
think the
if
town they're coming from gets those
the
taxes.
taxes they come from, but not to where they're coming to. Okay,
Can I make one more? I forgot to say.
please, Ms. Hughes.
So I live over here.
Yeah.
I'm like most people in this room. And I think a lot of us who live over here feel like we're kind of the forgotten area.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people and kids who live over here.
Yes.
I think I'm right there. And there are a lot of people and kids who live over here. This is not, I know at one point it was like, whatever you call it, Seven Swamps and whatever the things, in the old days that people used to call this. This is a really nice area
It
of
is
our town.
nice.
we've got Mary Cummings Park, we've got a lot of stuff. We need to care about this street, Middlesex Turnpike. And as I think I told Tony, I was really disappointed in that gas station and the fact that you guys, it just right up on the street. I really want to ask you to just care about the people who live down here. And that is the way, the entrance to Burlington from Lexington and Arlington and all the rest, that's the first thing people see. And I think we need to just remember that. And you on the planning board, I just ask a request that just don't forget us over here. This is not a throwaway area.
That's right.
Yep, thank you. Maybe, just since you were talking, Ms. Hughes, that overlay, would that include the Real School of Music?
Yeah, there's, yes.
Well, it doesn't include the Real School of Music, it's across Middlesex
across the street.
Oh, it's across the street.
From,
So if they have the way they've done it, like door-to-door thing, I think that would probably work to their advantage, if we were to allow it in.
Would we consider that a school?
that I am not the zoning enforcement officer. I do have a
Well, it's a place
message-
where youth would hang out.
Yeah,
Whatever.
I do have a message that Will Seagard, who is the, has submitted this, is able to speak. And so,
Okay, I don't think you have any questions for him just yet, because we'll continue on to anyone else on the ZBRC. Betsy, did you see?
There are other people, I don't know if they want to.
Anybody?
Let me see, I see Sherry has her, or
Oh,
Jess.
Jess?
Jess
Okay,
has her
Jess,
hand.
yes, please. Ms. Sutherland, stay on planning board for a second.
I think this, I don't know if this is a question for staff, but just thinking about, this is, I mean, what Betsy just presented was, amazing. And I think there's a lot to consider and understand, especially since this was, granted it was 7 years ago, but this was before the town and the town voiced their opinion. Do we need, or should we treat this like we did the MBTA communities overlay, where there is some opportunities for town citizens, town meeting members to kind of sit down and have discussions with us, voice the concerns? I don't know if that should be a part of the process. That was kind of one of my questions.
if I could, was that directed at staff? So I would say that, that as staff, if the party, if the different boards and commissions, I would, my suggestion would be to speak to the select board, Board of Health, police, and kind of coalesce upon, if this is something that the town wants to pursue. And then I think it would definitely be probably a subcommittee, and that's how it's been discussed when we spoke with other communities and how they did it. They had, they started out with a subcommittee, and it kind of grew from there. So,
And choose our own overlay
yeah,
with certain
yeah.
subjects. Okay. Is there anyone
Yeah,
else?
Sherry does have her hand raised. You can't see
Okay.
her on the screen, but I'll send her.
Okay.
a
Ms.
request.
Ellis?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sherry Ellis, Zoning Bylaw Review. A couple of questions and a couple of comments. I won't nearly go into the detail that Betsy did. She did a good job with a lot of questions. Has Town Council reviewed this document to date?
Town council has not reviewed documents that have been submitted for any warrant article. I have not received comments from her for any warrant articles. So, no.
Okay.
Would-
Okay.
Would she typically, for non-town things? If it was
she
a private
will,
citizen that wanted to?
I will double check. I think she probably would, especially in this case where, something like this could get us into, legal.
Do we charge the applicants for her time for that?
Usually, it would be the applicant getting an outside counsel, and, she represents the town.
Right.
So that's usually how it would be, that would be conflict of interest.
So, Alex, if I may, are you using outside counsel to kind of go over the language here that the Attorney General might approve?
That would be probably more of a question for Will.
Okay? And is Will able to speak now?
Yep.
Will, are you able to speak?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a whole other article piece to this, which I know town council did review, and that is the general bylaw piece.
Okay.
The reason that a lot of the items that Betsy mentioned are not in this zoning piece is because they are already state law. So town council's view with respect to the general bylaw was there are over 300 pages of state law regarding all of this, and it's very prescriptive and very clear on exactly what a licensee's requirements are. And so every single town doesn't need to include all of that information on their bylaws individually for it to still be valid. I don't know if she still feels that way with respect to the zoning, but I would suspect that it would be. Also, the overlay and all of this can be restricted more. Just, we wanted to start the conversation, get this on paper, get this in front of all the necessary boards, and then we can always scale it back. But town council had said we could never add additional
Right.
zones
Yep. No, I get it.
unless we
Yep.
wanted
I'm gonna,
to.
Well, I'm going to stop you there, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, we get that. I guess my question was, are you using an outside counsel that is familiar with zoning requirements to review this particular zoning article?
Yes, my attorney did review it and helped compile it, and they had a similar opinion on it, which was that, you know, it's already super clear in state law, doesn't all need to be rehashed. What does need to just be finalized at the town level is really this overlay, the buffers, the setbacks, and all of those things. I'm happy to provide a ton more information with respect to everything that Betsy had mentioned as far as security plans and all of those things. Just for some reference, I have a cultivation
And that's in the
facility.
general bylaw? Or is that stuff that you reviewed, Betsy, was in general bylaws or zoning bylaws from the
This
outside?
is these are the,
No, sorry, Will, I asked this to
I have
Betsy.
the bylaw from like, Bill Ricca, for
Okay.
example.
Zoning or general, do you know?
So,
I was zoning, I believe.
so when I did my research, I looked zoning, general, and Board of Health regs. And every single town that I looked at had more robust zoning regulations than what has been presented here.
Okay, great, thank you. Is there?
The state doesn't control
No.
zoning as far as marijuana is
Mr. Chair, could I have a follow-up question?
Sorry, is that Ms. Ellis?
Yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
please, go ahead,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Ellis.
So I had questions about the overlay map, and I think I just want to clarify. When an overlay map is done, you have to overlay parcels, entire parcels. You cannot split parcels within an overlay. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct, but I believe that the Sears, if I'm picking up what you're pointing out, the Sears parcel, that is a separate parcel on the mall.
No, I was picking up on Burlington Mall Road. But again, this is just a map that's not really very clear, but I would think that the zoning somewhere along the line would have to indicate the actual parcel similar to what you did in the MBTA.
Yep.
So that's just something going forward to look at. The other thing I would agree is that the regulations for what a school is not, should really be further clarified. Why are we pulling out dance schools but not karate schools? It seems very arbitrary as far as that goes. The last thing is a question, I don't know who to ask this question to, but should this overlay be passed and the properties are there, if a new business, a new private school or a new dance studio would like to locate either in or next to the overlay, what happens? Can they not come in, or is that their own choice, or they're not allowed? I don't know
Let's go
what the
to staff on that
regulations for
one.
that would be.
Yep, Sherry, let's go to staff on
So I don't know the answer to that. I could reach out to town council. My gut reaction would be that, as a private business owner, you get to decide whether or not you want to open your dance school within
Right.
proximity to a
That was
marijuana
there before
facility.
you, right.
But I can absolutely double check on that.
Thank you, Sherry. Ms. Sutherland has her hand up. Member Sutherland.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a comment back to the fact that the state has a lot of those regulations. I think for me, it's like, but then why would all these other towns be adding additional regulations? And as we know, like the state could change things on their own. So for me, I very much need to see all of these elements listed in our bylaws.
I
Okay,
agree with
yeah.
Jess, because the state could change things and we want to have control.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. That's it from anybody? Anybody here have their, Melissa? Okay, if you can introduce yourself, thank you.
Melissa Tintakos, Economic Development Director, and I just wanted to kind of add to the discussion that, Will did come to the Economic Development Office and ask if we had, the town has considered this. And I had said, reported that, to date, both the Select Board and Planning Board hadn't really talked about it in depth as a policy decision or direction that they wanted to go in. So I guess I'm also here from the perspective, with the economic development hat on, that we should give, analysis to this. I think for the planning board to understand that this is one proposal, and if the planning board and select board think that this is the direction they want to go in, maybe as our planning director suggested, a subcommittee or some approach that says, okay, this is one approach, is this the way we want to, apply it in Burlington? If even that's kind of where the land use policy direction wants to go from planning and from the select board, because I know that the select board also has to be in agreement with selecting kind of or kind of signing off on the host community agreements with potential cannabis retailers. So and it's just part of that consideration as you're kind of thinking through this. It's just one proposal. And for Will to bring it up, I think it's doing exactly what the intent was, to get us talking
Get the
about it
conversation started, yeah.
and, having it part of our discussion, so.
Okay, great. Yes, go ahead, Ms. LaRue.
Thank you. I just also wanted to remind everyone, when we put in place the moratorium 7 or 8 years ago, we did have, I think it was at least 2, possibly 3 public meetings where members of the public came. And so it was a pretty robust process. And I think that if we're going to remove the moratorium, our process to do that should be just as robust.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking here, anybody else's hand raised there?
I do not see anybody else with their hands raised online,
Okay,
so no, Mr. Chair.
nobody here? Okay, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Motion is second.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we've got item E.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion rezoning the property at 43 Middlesex Turnpike, which is Middlesex Commons, to the general business BG district, submitted by Ryan Leeming.
Good evening.
Good morning, Mr. Leeming. Good afternoon, sorry. Long day.
Or evening.
Very
Either
evening.
one of the three.
So folks that are familiar with this particular site, this is the old Caldo Mall, if I'm correct.
You are
right?
correct. You're dating yourself.
For the folks that have been around
I
a little
remember
bit,
that.
right? So the Middlesex, yeah,
It's up here on the screen just for everybody to
great.
get a sense for whether this is the highlighted parcel coming off of 128 here.
Okay, Mr. Leeming, please.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Mr. Chair, staff, members of the board, zoning committee. Ryan Leeming, Vice President of Edens. We're the owner of 43 Middlesex Turnpike, Middlesex Mall, Caldor, Middlesex Commons, one of many names. We're here requesting a rezone from IR, or retail industrial, to BG, general business, for, I think there's a lot of benefits, but really what brought us here was, we bought the mall in, I think 2001 originally. We did a redevelopment renovation in 2012 where we brought in a lot more uses. We brought in food. And I think it predates me as well, but I think the code has changed over the years as far as how restaurants are defined, how food uses are defined. A lot of that has evolved. And what we came to find out, in 2021, there was a merger between Eastern Bank and Century Bank, which closed the Eastern Bank location at Middlesex Commons. And since then, we've had an overwhelming interest from what is defined in the town as fast order food. So that's like Five Guys, Panera, coffee shops, et cetera. That use is not allowed at the property because of the zone that it sits in.
But Five Guys is.
Five Guys is there.
Yep, they were classified as a restaurant in 2012.
Okay.
So this is sort of what we've been going through in the last year and trying to figure out how do we go about this. And working with staff here, we finally said, okay, town meeting's coming up. It's the last and only retail industrial zone in the town of Burlington. And so Liz said, let's just get rid of it. Let's just make it BG. It belongs as a BG. It's a shopping destination. We also own Burlington Crossroads on Cambridge Street, which is also BG. The two centers are very similar, so that's the request in front of the board tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
Staff?
welcome.
Sure. So, again, you know, Mr. Leeming kind of said it all, but just as some background, so this was the only IG site in town, or IR site in town. I reached out to former planning director Tony Fields, who is now in Bedford, and he basically said that he believes that the reason that zone was created was because back in the day, town meeting believed that that area of Burlington should remain primarily industrial, and Caldor wanted to move in. They wanted to kind of be a second mall near the Burlington Mall. And so as a way to kind of meet in the middle, they created this retail industrial district, which are two uses that like you would not assume would go together. So, you know, it's just an old thing that has just remained. And so I think it's high time that we kind of make right of it. I don't really see any type of other use for this district. And in the backup, Caleb actually did put together a comparison of the BG uses versus the IR uses. And so, you know, it's, this doesn't make the site pre-existing non-conforming. It conforms with everything in the BG as far as all the dimensional requirements are concerned. And so I think it just provides Edens with a little bit more flexibility in tenanting.
Okay. Thank you, staff. We'll go to the planning board members. We'll start with Mr. Covino.
Sure, I think this is definitely a no-brainer, and I think that we should also, at the same time, since we're running out of room in our zoning table, I don't know if you noticed, direct staff to prepare an article for January that deletes IR completely from the zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Covino. Mr. LaRue.
I agree with Ernie, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Ms. Natola.
Totally agree as well.
Thank you. Ms. Sutherland.
No questions, sounds good.
Okay. The only thought that I had was just to thank the applicant on this with both their particular areas, both the Commons and the Crossroads. I think you've done a great job of redevelopment on both of those
Thank you.
sites.
Yeah.
I'm going to push it over to Ms. Hughes with the ZBRC.
I only have some technical suggestions here. The way this is written, it's written more like rationalization of why you want to do it rather than the actual article itself. Article, I think, would be very straightforward to vote. Middlesex is kind of that property from IR to BG, and that's pretty much all you need to say.
A little bit more technical, like.
It's just, yeah,
Yep,
just
sure.
short and to the point. It's probably
Sure.
one sentence.
No problem.
And then this, what you have here, would be part of the backup as to why.
Okay.
So it'll make your life easier.
No problem.
Thank you. It looks like, did I see Ms. Ellis's hand raised?
Sherry had her hand raised, but now she
She lowered
lowered
it?
it, so I don't know if, Sherry, if you're all set?
Anybody else from land use? I mean, the ZBRC, and then we'll look at land use?
See, no,
I see no hands raised.
And Ms. O'Brien does not have her hand raised?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you.
All right.
Do I have a motion?
Okay, yes. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Second.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Five.
Thank you. Good evening. Or
I do wish
have
to
a good
bring
evening.
back the Farm Outlet store, though.
Pepperidge Farm Outlet Store, we're going back in time.
Ooh.
They
Yeah.
had
That was a
fabulous
good
cookies at
store.
lower than retail prices.
That was great.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, as we're getting hungry, I think, from people thinking a little more food here.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Item F, it's a discussion amendment to Article 7 of the zoning bylaws to allow for parking and landscaping modifications. Staff, please.
Sure. So, again, this is a housekeeping amendment. So basically, we did a huge overhaul of the entire section 7 of our bylaw, Article 7, which primarily has to do with parking and landscaping. And we modernized it to make parking, basically make it easier to read for businesses, modernize it, add some design standards. And that was what we did in May, and now it's kind of cleaning it up based upon some comments and suggestions after the fact, you know, fixing transcription errors. There were a lot, I'm just gonna call out Sherry and the ZBRC. A lot of the, they brought up some items that were unable to be incorporated in the original text for May that have now been incorporated. And so that's essentially what this is. So, you know, that's more kind
Okay.
of what
Thank you,
what we're
staff.
doing here.
Yep, I know there were some items based on town meeting that need just a little bit
Yeah.
of cleanup, and I do thank the ZBRC, because you guys are
Yeah.
real good with regard to language and, you know, dotting i's and crossing the t's. Let me go to Ms. Sutherland with the staff, to planning board, sorry. Ms. Sutherland.
I don't have any issues here, any additional questions.
Okay, Ms. Natola,
I'm all set.
thank you. Ms. LaRue,
No questions.
Mr. Covino,
He stepped out for a moment.
okay, and I'll say no comments for me. Thank you, and is there a motion?
Did you want to?
Yeah, we want to wait to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we'll have to wait for Mr. Covino.
No, we want to,
Oh.
we want to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have to go, yeah, ZBRC, sorry, I'm just getting a little ahead of myself here. Maybe getting a little hungry.
I have 17 pages of notes that I'd like to...
Just the first 16, please.
I have no comments. I'll leave.
Thank you. Anybody else here raising their hand?
I'm seeing no one online, Mr. Chair.
All right, so well, let's wait for Mr. Covino to
Do
come
we
back.
need to wait just to?
I think
continue?
just for continuance,
2,
I think
3,
it's,
4,
it's not a
It's a
public,
discussion.
it's a discussion.
It's only a
okay?
Discussion.
They have a motion.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's a 4-0-0.
4-0-0.
Okay, item G, discussion is the amendment of Article 2, definitions, and Article 4, use regulations of the zoning bylaws, definitions and of use table housekeeping submitted by the planning board staff.
Again, very similar to what was before you before. I did make some changes in the use table based upon some comments that I received with the land use committee. There was concerns about, you know, allowing, you know, the town to, and I think other people, I think ZBRC also and Sherry had concerns. There was a use in there where public parks and anything that, you know, public meaning the town owned, would be allowed to happen in any RO zone. And I think there was a concern that, you know, neighbors wouldn't be notified if the town were to be making changes next door. So I did change that to a special permit. That's, you know, one of the few things that I changed. There were also some things in here that, for the MBTA Communities District, there are some accessory uses to residential uses that all had no's in them, but if that's going to be, if it's going to be a residential area, you should allow the residential accessory uses there. So simple things like that, just kind of cleaning it up, make sure it all works. But that's kind of all, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. We will start with Mr. Covino, if you're ready.
I'm all set.
Okay, thank you. Ms. LaRue?
No questions.
Okay, Ms. Natola?
No question.
Okay, Ms. Sutherland?
No questions.
Okay. The question I had was on the MBTA communities. I made the question, I think it was to town council about, it was frontage and there was other things that weren't currently on there. I think it was a zero frontage thing. Did we correct that?
So since this bylaw amendment does not reference the dimensional
The
table,
tables,
I
okay.
can't make it
Okay.
this time, but please remind me again.
Okay.
And I will
I'll
make
put
sure
that
to
in
have
our-
it for January.
I'll put that in our action notes. Yeah.
Please remind me. But yes, duly noted. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, and we'll go over to, Betsy, we'll go over to you first.
I have
Okay.
nothing.
And then we have Ms. Alice with their hand raised.
You should be able to unmute.
You should be able to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Thank you. Ms. Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can hear me?
Yes.
Just a question, actually. I haven't seen the updated version of this one or the one you did, the parking regulations one. I thought they were on the website, but it appears they're the same as from town meeting before. So if you could just send me a copy of those or put them up on the website. I didn't see the changes, so thank you.
So I can speak to that, Sherry. So those will go up. We do have updated bylaws for, that were sent to the AG, and a lot of the things that you pointed out that could be amended, that were non-substantial, were changed in those, and so those are the ones that are up on the website right now. I'm going to update them for more nitpicky things as well, and things that I'm mentioning today. So thank you, yes, and thank you. But I just wanted to point that out to you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else have their hand raised? Can you tell Caleb?
I do not see anybody else, no.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
You need to
Second.
off your computer and turn on. Gaffney?
Yes.
Sutherland?
Yes.
Natola?
Yes.
LaRue?
Yes.
Covino?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Item H is a discussion, again, for the amendment of Article 2, definitions, Section 18R of the zoning bylaws, refining the definition of retail experiential and commercial interactive venue, submitted by the Economic Development Director. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess I skipped something. Which number are we on?
I believe I'm on H.
On H, thank
Am
you.
I on H? Is
No,
that correct?
yes, I skipped H by mistake.
Yes.
Thank you.
You are.
Good?
Yes, you're good.
Thank you. Please.
Thank you, Chairman Gaffney. Again, my name is Melissa Tentopoulos, Economic Development Director, and the two articles submitted here, the first being the refining the definition. 2.5 years ago, we brought to town meeting the kind of new definition or new terminology for experiential retail and commercial interactive venues. As we had been seeing trends in kind of the retail market, that large anchors had been kind of closing, shifting, the retail landscape shifting, and today we see more patterns of anchor entities being more experiential. People are coming for food, drink, and experience, things to do, entertainment-based. And so this definition, when initially proposed, it really had this one word in there that said, which may only be permitted in combination with a restaurant. So when we're talking about experiential uses, that only really bundled in the use with restaurant. So what we are doing now is just taking out the only, so it has a little bit more flexibility. These uses would still come to the planning board for a special permit. It still can be grouped with, food, a kind of food or restaurant, but it doesn't have to be with the only language coming out of that. So it gives more tenanting options, and we heard from the building department that it also offers a little bit more flexibility for them when they're interpreting the bylaw.
Thank you. Staff?
Staff has no concerns with this amendment.
Thank you. Let me go to Ms. LaRue. Got you by surprise there.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
I don't have questions right now. I want to listen to everybody else's comments. I might have something later, but right now, I'm fine.
Okay, Mr. Covino?
Just maybe a question for the applicant. Can you give us an example of something that might be standalone without a restaurant, Melissa?
Not necessarily. We haven't had that come up per se. What we were thinking about, we have the first line that captures some of that, which are might be, virtual reality or multimedia. So if you go to the Natick Mall, for example, they have some pop-ups that are immersive. They do not have food. But the way our definition was reading would assume that that needed food, and that's how it was being interpreted. So that's why we wanted partly to make this clarification.
Maybe like an arcade?
I think way back when, that was kind of the purpose of it, because we didn't want just a pinball machine.
Yeah, right,
okay?
yeah.
Way back when.
So that's why you wanted.
Times they are changing,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
so
yeah, okay.
I think I'd be in favor.
That's a good point.
Thanks.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Sutherland?
The language in here, where it says, in-store, I'm assuming this means it has to be like a fully enclosed place, or like how are we defining that?
I think so. We'll let the development director talk, but I see this as the retail, it says the retail tenant space. It doesn't say indoor or outdoor, but Melissa, if you wouldn't comment?
There was an intention to define it for indoor specifically or outdoor specifically. I think it allowed enough flexibility for both. Again, that's where the special permit by a planning board would come into play.
Okay, so like through then the special permit process, if it was decided that it was like, let's say like partially opened or whatnot, that we could then restrict certain lighting in terms of like where it's located outside. We could do that through the special permit process.
So maybe you could think of something like, I don't know, maybe in the Lord and Taylor building, it could be like a drone course, for example, right? A drone race course or something where it wouldn't be food, but it would be indoor. Could even be outdoor. You'd have an outdoor part and you could have a screened area, but still then you go back inside or something. Just kind of thinking crazy. Okay.
That's a new use.
Thank you, Ms. Sutherland. Ms. Natola.
That's a new.
No questions.
Okay. I did not have any questions on this.
I have
Ms.
none.
Hughes? Okay. Anyone's hand raised? You see there from?
I do not. Sherry, Sherry,
there's
just raise your hand.
Thank you. Here she is. Thank you. Ms. Ellis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You can hear me?
Yes.
I guess to follow up with Ms. Sutherland's question, to me, I read this as that it's an in-store experiential use. So if you don't want it to be in-store and you want the option, I'm not sure you should have that word in there, because to me, that reads it has to be in a store.
In store, okay. From the board tonight, is there a sense that there is a desire for this to be more indoor versus outdoor? Or is the flexibility encouraged?
I don't have any view on that. I think you'd be able to do both, as I go back to my thinking about pickleball, right? But that might, a lot of places now are coming with restaurants with that. But you may do an indoor-outdoor with that, might be a
By
combination.
special permits.
And
Yeah, it's by
it's
special.
similar to what you're seeing with, let's say Common Craft, it's got an indoor component and outdoor component. I don't,
Okay.
no. Okay, anything else, Ms. Ellis? Seeing none, let's go have a motion.
Yes. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Second,
Gaffney?
Yes.
Sutherland?
Yes.
Natola?
Yes.
LaRue?
Yes.
Covino?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Item I, this is a discussion and amendment to Article 13, sign regulations of the zoning bylaw, addition of a new section regarding temporary signs. That again is submitted by the Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Chairman Gaffney. So what is presented for this warrant article is an addition to our zoning bylaws, which is the temporary sign bylaw. Currently, under our zoning and general bylaw, there are no pathways for temporary signs. We've been working with the building commissioner, or the inspector of buildings, to identify short-term interventions to support local businesses, and that was supported by the chamber. I know a couple of our planning board members were part of the chamber meeting about 3 months ago now, where we had some of the business community coming to the town to kind of explain the support needed over time in challenging environments, especially in the commercial environment. We talked about the long-term efforts that we're doing with some of the zoning initiatives, but then we looked at what are some of our short-term things immediately that would help existing businesses, and in particular, the small businesses. We went back to a report that we had done back in 2021, which is the Rapid Recovery Report that we got from the state on the town center, and one of the recommendations was to look specifically at our bylaws, our sign bylaws. And so with that support, we've had, our ZBRC's subcommittee on sign bylaws, supported them on getting some grant, at least applications in, we haven't heard yet, to do the permanent signs. But on the parallel track, talking to our inspector of buildings, the temporary sign is what he had issues with, a lot of non-compliance. So we looked at a couple models and put forward what you have before you, and in particular, in 13.3.2, where it says temporary sign program for business, that specifically is the new introduction to the zoning bylaw that would allow a pathway for businesses. A couple policy considerations for discussion I would point to is the definition. Is this the definition that is agreeable to planning board, ZBRC? And the frequency. How often would we want to allow a temporary sign, a business to do a temporary sign in a calendar year? Permit fees, we're thinking at $20. We're trying to keep this a low bar. Enforcement and conditions would go through the building department. But that is the gist of what is before you. The other piece is one, just I would say strategy, which I've talked a little bit to the ZBRC subcommittee members, is would this be confusing for town meeting, just given that they are working on a permanent sign bylaw? And should this wait for that, or is it independent enough? Those are some questions for the boards to consider.
Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Staff has no concerns with this.
Okay, thank you. Let's start with Ms. Natola.
No questions.
Okay, let me go over to Ms. Sutherland.
I think this is great. I think this will be good for small businesses. I have no questions.
Okay, thank you. And I know Ms. Sutherland, myself, and the economic director, development director were at that meeting, and they said, is there any kind of low bars that we can get over the hurdle for this? And this is one of them. Permitting was another one as well. Mr. Covino.
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. Ms. LaRue?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions, nothing major. Looking at the definition 13322, definition of a temporary sign, it says any sign, banner, or similar structure. I feel like that's ambiguous. I don't know what a similar structure might be. I'd rather have it just say any sign or banner, but if there's something in mind that you had in mind when you said similar structure, please enlighten me and we'll fix it, because I just don't know what that means.
Okay.
Is that the Chelmsford language, Ms. Yancopoulos?
That initial sentence, yes. The second sentence, the feather banners and inflatable tubes, that was,
Yes, we
Yeah, we
eliminate
know that's
those.
we eliminate, we're eliminating that.
Everyone knows I don't like those.
Yes.
And then the only other thing is, it seems like we need to specify the number, and in some places it says shall be permitted to install 2, and maybe this is just not the right place for it, but underneath temporary sign program for businesses, I'm looking, it says how many times they can apply per year, but it doesn't say how many signs they can have at one time.
I thought we,
So I'd like to clarify that. Maybe
Okay.
it's 1, maybe it's 2, whatever the number is, we should have a number in there.
okay.
And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. LaRue. Yeah, my thought on this was that with regard to the, what they call feather signs in there, other people call them razor signs. I'd be in favor of just saying, you know, what do we call that? Just flags would be the term. With the inflatables, again, that's more specific. As I was thinking about this just now, would it be more, you know, electromechanical, you know, apparatus maybe, instead of just the inflatable? Because now I'm just thinking, what else? Well, you could have drones, you know, kind of, that'd be your new, right? I'm just kind of thinking a little bit where maybe Chelmsford wasn't thinking about this, but, you know, maybe that helps or hurts. I don't know. We'll have to think about that.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe over to Ms. Hughes. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a couple of things. You know, I think, because I'm working on the sign
Yeah.
committee, and our focus is really on the town center, exclusively town center on that particular committee. And I think we can differentiate between the temporary situation and that. Ideally, we'd want to put it all together. I guess my first question is, what is the sense of immediacy that you all feel in terms of responding to the businesses that need this? And can it wait till January, or is it really important for them to feel like they've been heard and we're acting on their behalf? Because I think that will have an influence in how we do this, and it may be we layer it in, like we're going to start here, realizing that if there's some things in here that are just not going to meld with where we end up on the overall sign bylaw for town center, we can have a special section in the town center that deals with temporary signs if we need to. I'm thinking of it like design standards, because there are some temporary signs that I know
Yeah.
that I see, we're
Right.
never going to want those in the town center. But maybe it's okay in the Crossroads Mall, you know, in front of whatever, 5 Degrees or whatever that
Yeah,
place
yeah,
is.
yeah.
So
Okay.
I guess I don't know if we want to have design centers, design standards in this kind of a temporary sign. I'm a little hesitant to have it a free-for-all, because I just don't know what we're going to end up with, and that concerns me. But I know there's a business need to have something on a
Sure.
temporary basis, but maybe we might want to think of doing something to,
You have control of it like that.
yeah, to kind of have some sort of control
Yeah.
over it, over the design. Again, Melissa, I don't want to I don't want to have our project to be an obstacle to satisfying a need that these businesses have on a short term. If you can address the design stuff, and as long as everybody understands that we may end up coming back at this just for the town center. So if the people in town center may actually have regulations they're going to have to follow coming in later. And I don't know technically, and Sherry's really the expert, not me, whether by allowing this to happen now, if we change it later, it means that the people who did what they did now don't have to change. I don't know if there's.
Well,
No,
they're
'cause they're
temporary
temporary.
signs.
They're temporary, okay.
So if they can have something for 14 days, if we change it, the next time they come
Right.
back, you know,
Okay.
They
You
know,
have to get a
all right,
permit each
okay,
time.
so I don't have to
Right.
worry
And
about
this-
that.
we're
This is-
looking at it up to 4 times, maybe 3 or 4 times a year they come in for that,
So if
based
this-
on seasonal,
Okay.
yeah.
So anyhow, I guess that's my comment. I want to support what it is you're trying to do, but at the same time, I don't want to do anything that will shoot us in the foot later.
Well, and same. I mean, I think that's what was probably, you know, when we were looking at this, I think I just put it in its own temporary bucket, but
Yeah.
not in the context of the work that you're doing. So we could,
And the
I
other
think the
comment-
urgency, this has been longstanding from my understanding from, you know, even the town clerk came to me about this. So if we need to hold it off and like refine it, I think that's fine too.
I guess in a way, and I might be talking myself into this, but this affects the whole town.
Yeah,
This
Yeah.
affects the whole town. What we're going to be dealing with is only the town center.
yeah.
So I think it might actually be cleaner to do this in September and do town center in January, and not conflate the two.
Yep.
Because I don't want people to think the town center signage things are going to apply over here. And if we can separate them, I think it actually might help make those differences clearer. But my design standard comment still stays.
Is there an opportunity for the consultant that was approved by town meeting to take a look at this? I don't know if you've
Chip in
engaged
some
them.
money?
Well, I mean, you've already had, you've got approval for the consultant, and it's probably out of the scope, because you're probably not talking temporary, but, I don't know if it's just, you can
I
sneak one
mean,
in.
yes, sure. I mean, I can certainly ask, but if I want to, I need to keep this consultant pretty focused.
Yeah.
Because I've already been told that we've given them an unreasonable timeframe.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, we can do this now, and then if the town center bylaw passes in January, we can steal what they've done if we like it.
Yeah.
And just update
Yeah,
this.
Mike.
you know?
Bill?
Yes, sir.
It might not, Betsy, it might not be a bad idea to see what happens if this passes in September. And that might give us I don't know if that's enough time between September and January. Give us a feel with what happens
Comes
that we
out.
don't like.
The
And then you-
consulting project will be done by town meeting,
Okay.
By this town meeting.
Wow.
September, I think. I mean, there's work
Yeah,
that we need
yeah.
to do to get ready for January, but
Right.
the bulk of the
Okay.
consultant's portion of the project will be done
Okay.
by
Okay.
September.
And we can always adopt some of that later.
Sure. I see Miss Ellis up there. Is it, you all set?
Yeah, and Sherry and I haven't even, I mean, we haven't talked about this, so I'm
Okay.
probably,
Miss Ellis?
she's the
Please.
boss, so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this needs a little bit more conversation, in my opinion, in the sense that, and we're kind of having it here, is we've spent the last 3 years working on a sign bylaw to change the signage into signage districts and not use the zoning districts. And by using zoning districts in this, it kind of goes backwards to where we're going. So therefore, if we did come back in January with a town center signage, then we would have to redo this entirely because there's single family in the town center, there's BG in the town center. And so I think it just we need to think about it a little bit. I don't know whether it should go forward or not, but I think it's very confusing to what we're trying to put forward, trying to change the entire way we do signage with signage districts. That's my comment on this one. I don't have a solution off the top of my head yet because I want to look further into it, but I think we would, I don't want to not support the businesses if this is and we have put some temporary signage in the town center language, which contradicts actually with what some of this is with numbers and how many days and things like that. And so great, we need to have that conversation, what the right numbers are and things. But I just think in putting it back into the zoning districts, we're going to have real confusion when we get to January for the signage. So that's my thought.
I guess I'd like to suggest that, Melissa, that we have you come to our meeting and maybe have an offline discussion, just kind of think this through, how we can layer this in.
Okay.
And what seems
Yeah.
to make sense, because
Yeah. Okay. I just had a crazy thought. And when I say that, my wife cringes. But just maybe to the Economic Development Director, how would something like this fall into a temporary sign? For example, I'm just thinking of I used to go to Buffalo occasionally for business, and I'd see this person dressed up in a lobster suit with a sign. How does that come into? It's not inflatable.
it's a human sign.
It's a human sign, but it's temporary.
We have those on.
Sign
like,
spinners.
Like with the
Sign
sign
spinners.
sale things.
Very
You know, if are going on a business type
Yeah.
thing, that's a temporary sign that we don't manage it today. Just, I don't need an answer today.
No,
just
it's a
kind of
good question. I'll bring it back and kind of research on that front, too.
Not specifically the lobster soup, but yeah, in general.
Yeah, I think
I
that
wonder
there's
if
sign spinners.
Holding it?
I think that's what they're called typically.
If
Yes,
someone's
yes,
holding
sign
it, or
spinners.
is it, can we regulate it, or is it like a free speech thing? I don't know.
So there
He's
are.
getting paid for it.
So there are court cases about what signs can be regulated and what can't, and municipal and political signs essentially can't be regulated, but
But sale signs held by a person can be?
I believe so.
Okay. Sorry to bring that up, because now it's more work for people to,
That's why your wife cringed.
she does, she really
For the
does. I'm an idea man, you know, I'm kind of always thinking of different stuff. Okay,
Mr. Chair, I'd
Thank
like
you.
to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning
Thank
board
you.
meeting of August 15th, 2024.
Second,
Gaffney,
yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Rappaport,
not here.
sorry, Vivino.
That's late.
Here, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
I'd like to thank everyone that, from the ZBRC and from land use that participated in
They're
that.
gone.
Yeah.
Now,
No, she's
Mr.
good, she's
Chair?
good, stuff there. Yep.
I would like to make a motion to adjourn the joint meeting of the planning board and the zoning bylaw review committee.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you.
Second. Oh, Lord.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Cavino.
sure, yes.
Okay, hey, I have another
I'd
motion.
also like to make a motion to call to order the meeting of the planning board.
Do that again.
Is there a second? Thank you.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Cavino.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is a meeting of the planning board. What we do at the beginning is a public participation. Is there anyone in the audience or online who's here to speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda?
If you're online, you want to raise your hand, give it a minute or a second, but I don't see anything.
Okay, and we're all good here? Okay, seeing none. Announcements, staff.
Yes, so I will pull it up. If you give me 1 second. Computer is a little funny. All right, upcoming on August 3rd is Celebrate Burlington. And you can see up here, this is from the Burlington Parks and Recreation Department website, that on that date, that there will be a carnival that begins on the town common at 11 a.m., car show at 5 p.m., 7 p.m. concert, and at 9 p.m. there will be fireworks.
Great. Any announcements from staff, other staff, or from our board? Okay? Thank you. Legal notices, none. Non-approvals, none. Administrative matters. Item 7A, is it, oh, yes. Oh,
sorry.
okay, we're good. Discussion, request for approval of minor engineering change, 22A Street. Bright Bear Academy is the applicant. Please. Yep. Do you ever stand there for the poster?
I think we retired the stand.
I think
a
it's
while
up.
ago. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's on the screen, so I think
Okay,
we're
it's on
good.
the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yep.
And just make sure when you're there.
No, we used to have them all the time.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Pull that out in a second. All right, just wanted to introduce myself, Jay Patel, representing Bright Bear Academy, which is a childcare center that we're planning on opening on 22A Street. This is my partner, my business partner, Sandro. And yeah, so we've been working on this project for a couple of months now with Miss Emily and Mr. Caleb from the planning board. And I think we're just at the point where we need to submit for a parking plan change and minor engineering change. And hopefully we can get started, and we kind of look forward to bringing this service to the town and its residents, so.
Okay, can you explain what you're going to do on the parking plan?
For sure. So currently, there is no playground, as it was I believe it was an office use. As a childcare center, we're required to bring a playground to the site.
And this is Middlesex Turnpike on the right-hand side?
It's Middlesex Turnpike Extension.
Oh, that side there, yeah.
Yeah, so that section, where A Street kind of.
This is
Got
A
it.
Street over here.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep.
So we are changing the parking plan around that playground that's kind of pointed out right there in that shaded red area, right there. So that's the majority of the change. I mean, obviously, we had to shift around some of the parking spots around that, but the real intention is to add that playground. As you can see, or I guess not, but it's fenced off. It's going to be fully fenced off. And then we're going to have the bollards all around it to prevent any kind of vehicle from entering that playground area, to prevent any kind of accidents. We want to obviously ensure the safety of all the children at the center. So, yeah, if there's any questions.
We'll go to staff.
We did meet with the applicant a few few weeks ago, I think months ago.
Months, yes.
Months ago. But this is a by right use because it's a childcare facility. And so what is before you today is really to kind of, we're codifying the change of parking. They are eliminating a few parking spaces. And then we want to make sure that because there are going to be young children here and it's going to be parents with kids in car seats and they're going to be bringing them out of the car and walking them into the building, that they have a safe access. And so they have designated those kind of the spaces that Caleb was pointing to as drop-off only spaces for parents. There is enough parking for drop-off and staff, I remember, but I think if you could talk about a little bit about how many staff you're anticipating and kind of how many children you're anticipating, and I would also want to know kind of the age ranges of how that what
Sure.
you guys are gonna do.
So just to clarify, we are removing some spots from the front, but with the parking that we're adding on the side and also the compact spaces, and there's a spot in the back, there's actually going to be an addition of one spot from the current. So it's going from 30 to 31. For staff members, yeah, so we have the parking spots that they pointed out with the drop-offs right there, and those are going to be held just for parents and kept open from any staff use. But we do have 26 spots for staff members, and we will have about 26 staff members, but they won't all be there at the same time. So we're expecting at the highest somewhere around 22 staff members at one time. There is a bus stop right on site, and also we will be incentivizing a carpool service or carpool agreements. So we're not expecting to use all 22 spots, but we do have them. And you said the age range of the kids, right?
Yeah,
So-
how many?
Yeah, so it's 159, right?
Yes.
159 students, or kids, I guess. And they range from about 6 months to 4 years old. So I think we'll have a couple classrooms of the infants, and then a bunch of them for toddlers, and then I think there's 3 classrooms of pre-K, so.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Ms. LaRue?
I don't have any
And-
questions, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
And yeah, the only other thing is that playground structure is, actually, I have it right here. So that playground structure is going to be, there's going to be one structure here for the older children, and then we have a shaded area right here for infants to kind of crawl around and play around with some toys. It's all, childcare approved surfaces and structures. It's being done by a professional playground company, so just wanted to add that in there.
Okay. Mr. Covino?
Thank you.
Ms. Natola?
No, I remember this. It's, I have no questions. You're going to put you said it will be totally enclosed where the.
Yes, it'll be enclosed, right, yep, we have fences. I'm sorry, we don't have a bigger copy, but yep, we have fences and the bollards and that sort of thing. So, yeah, we definitely are strong on the safety aspect.
Okay. Ms. Sutherland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple questions. I think my first question is, do you currently operate anywhere else?
We personally do not. We have a consultant that we've hired to kind of help us kind of get set up, and then also guide us through that first year. But we're hiring staff, directors that do have experience, and we're kind of experienced in the retail world, but we're looking to make our foray into the childcare world here.
Okay. And what would you say is like your differentiating factor for you as a childcare facility?
I mean, I think the same as a lot of new childcare centers is we're very focused on the learning aspect. We're not really seeing ourselves as a daycare and, just a place for kids to stay essentially or being dropped off. We really want to impart these students with some kind of educational piece that kind of helps them, lead their class when they do, make their way into Burlington Public Schools or wherever they are. I guess some of our students may be coming from the surrounding towns if their parents work in the town or that kind of thing. But yeah, we really want to emphasize that educational aspect and kind of give these young students just their best shot at success into their school career.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess like my question is around, kind of the type of, I can't think of the right word, but like, for example, I mean, we had heard from someone in the same area that follows Montessori type of structure, and I didn't know if, you know, you had a different type of learning structure, or if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a pretty typical STEM curriculum. We're going to make it fun for the students, but yeah, just a, you know, educational aspect. No specific Montessori program or anything like that, but we are currently tailoring a STEM curriculum.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I had a couple of questions.
Sure.
More with the traffic flow. Where's the front door to here?
Yes, so
Is that on Middlesex Turnpike Extension, or is it on?
it's on A Street, right where the number, yep, right there. So that's the front door.
Yep,
It's kind of a low-traffic area. It's not Middlesex Turnpike,
yep.
the main road. It's like kind of that extension road. So it's not the highest traffic, so we kind of picked that on purpose. We don't necessarily want to be, you know, in the middle of everything, so.
Yeah, I think where my concern is up on the drop-off spaces and how they're angled.
Oh, sorry, I'll go back to that.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Sure.
I'm going to hit landscaping in a second. So I'm just envisioning, I have a bit of experience with drop-off at daycare centers. So if we're dropping off, then to get out of this place, we're going to, people are coming in to drop off, and at the same time, you got to go, there's only one way out, right? You got to go back out that way?
Right.
Back out towards A Street? There's no kind of all the way around, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And I'd go to staff to see, maybe take a look at that. I just think that's just not going to work. So if the front door, what's that? You could do this other, if you put the other spots as the drop-off spots, maybe over there to the right where you're pointing, or the ones in front, I could go either way with that. But again, to notice where the front door is probably the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the front versus 5 on the side that are angled. I just think that's, and maybe you just ask the rest of the board what they think about that. I just don't see it working. You're going to be
Backing into
Yes.
the
backing up into the folks that are coming into,
And you're at the wrong angle to get out.
exactly.
Thank you, Bill.
You got to do like a three-point turn with people coming in and they're in a rush.
Right.
If you guys don't have experience with daycare, I do, I know
Yes.
other members do, that people are not necessarily taking their time,
Sure.
particularly with drop-offs, where if they're hooking into, heading to the coffee in one hand and got to get to the job in the other, you know?
Yeah.
And then, so, yeah, if you wouldn't mind heading to the Google map,
Yep.
Caleb, just look at what we have for existing landscaping here for
This is,
example.
and I will just say, the site has been renovated since.
Yep, I understand, yep.
This has been, so it's not
Yes.
It's
fully
not
accurate to what
accurate,
this is
yeah.
today.
I have been by there recently, but just,
So this is our online map. What is regular?
This is the same as Google. It's the same. The only better one would be this, when it was
That's-
partway through work.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
right, yeah, yeah.
This is, I mean, I have a really small picture of what it looks like today, but.
That'd be great, if you could send that around.
I was going to say, Mr. Chair, sorry to interrupt, but I drive by there almost every day, and it's a lot of weeds.
A lot of weeds, okay.
Yep, I mean, we'll definitely have a comprehensive landscaping plan. Actually, you can kind of see it right there on that, picture right there, if you zoom in, but,
I can also pull up the old,
Is
this
that-
was,
but that is exactly kind of how it looks today. They did a great job of getting that rendering, bringing it to life.
And where does the landscaping plan go to? Is that part of this plan here, or?
The landscaping plan was part of the original minor engineering change when they came to us to renovate the building.
Okay,
Yeah, you can pop it up. This is what, this might ring a bell to,
this is what it was permitted under in 2022.
great.
Oh, wow.
These are the renderings that were submitted,
yeah, so.
which I think these are accurate to what the site is
Yeah,
today.
looks very similar.
So,
Actually,
that's what.
exactly, yeah.
So you're saying that this landscaping, what's the status of this landscaping here?
That, I'm not quite sure. That's probably, was that actually submitted as a landscaping plan?
This is
Because
part
that
of
was by the
the-
property, that was by the property owner who did these revisions, and they have not cured to that standard yet. So I can take that back and
Yeah, that'd be
kind of
great.
figure out with them.
They can comply to that.
Yeah, I can take that to the
That would be excellent.
property owner.
Yeah.
We're leasing the space, but
Yep, that's good. So I just go to our fellow board members here on the angle parking for drop-off or alternatives to that. I'd just like to get your thoughts on that.
Hi.
Ms. Natola?
I feel like that it's a little dangerous, but on your side view, it looks really nice if.
Sure.
It just, the picture that they just had up there, when they have it on the same side of the building, I just think it would be easier access for right where the cars are would.
These ones here where the
big-
mouse is?
Right, yeah, right
Yeah.
there. If they had the drop-offs right there.
Right there.
I think it would just make more sense to have a drop-off there and safer for the children, and then the door's right there. And the
Sure,
door-
we're definitely open to that.
Don't angle any of the, even
I
the
like it
drop-off spaces?
straight,
Just
no
don't
way.
do any
Yeah.
spaces here?
Yeah, these be the drop-off spaces.
We originally had the drop-offs on the side, but I think we worked with the planning board and,
So there was, so that we did speak to them about having, Caleb, if you could zoom out. I don't.
Yeah, zoom out.
So they were proposing to have, I'm gonna show you guys, these spaces right here along, so here's the door, if you see my mouse.
Yep.
This is the door. These spaces, so if you have a child with a car seat, you would need to get out of your car, go around your car, and take your kid out of the car seat. And
Yep.
this area is very narrow. So, and if you're gonna put, it just wouldn't,
Right, but we were talking about not those spaces,
Yeah.
but the ones
To the
that are
right.
regular spaces right along.
Sure.
Keep moving, there you go.
Yes,
Right there.
those are, so we also discussed that. There is a transformer right here on the site.
Because it used to be a provider over there,
Okay.
ESPU, so that's why it's basically, they have to.
So there's no,
There's no sidewalk there to
that goes
get around?
behind the
not currently.
currently. So parents would have to come out, go around, and then in. So, my suggestion would be to eliminate the angle here.
Yeah,
You might have to eliminate some
Sure.
spaces.
so on the right, yeah.
And, I don't know, we would have to reevaluate the
Do we,
zoning.
do we need access, no, this is upside down. Do we need access through this? What if we just made this whole thing kind of like a parking, so you can kind of center these spots? So you have access to both sides. Would that satisfy?
I don't know what you.
I'm saying if you move these spots kind of over to that middle of that little strip of asphalt, so then you have,
And they can get out on the right.
you can get off on the right, the left, you know what I mean? And
How do they-
there just wouldn't be a passing lane through here, but I mean, there's obviously a street here.
And then can they drive around the back of the building?
There's nothing on the back of
So
the, there's no driving through the
Pull
back.
in, then how do they get out?
So you could pull in here and just kind of, the first car would pull in all the way and then they would,
Okay.
Like a school drop-off.
Pull in.
like a school drop-off essentially.
Okay. So they could pull in down the bottom. I
Yeah, they can pull in here and then kind of pull up and then drop off their kid and then exit out here.
So he's talking
So
over here.
that's another option. We're
Right here.
kind of okay with any,
Well, why don't we do this? I think
Suggestion.
This is probably, we need to take this back and,
Yeah, I think that the angled spaces need to be revised.
Yeah.
So we'll be in touch and talk with
Okay.
your, engineer or
Sure.
surveyor or architect on this to kind of figure this out. And also, it brings into question, zoning compliance for parking with this type of use.
and what is that?
Off the top of my head,
Let me see if it's on here.
They'd probably only lose one spot, though.
yeah,
when they-
so it should be,
That's right.
it should be 2 per classroom plus,
Yeah, here it is, 2 per classroom.
yeah.
You have 12 classrooms, so you need 24 spaces.
Yeah, they need 27 spaces
The
and
the calculation
With
is from the
handicap.
plan shows it
27, yeah,
required 27.
right up here in the,
We have 27, how many are required?
we have 31, 27 are required. So we have opportunity to pare it back.
We have,
So if they lose
we
one,
have
they're
wiggle
still
room,
good.
so that's
we do.
good.
okay.
Okay.
The other, okay, never mind.
Okay.
I'll ask offline.
Yeah, I think that's good, if we don't
I have a
mind,
question. We can ask offline.
if we don't mind
So we're gonna
continuing
continue?
the, yeah, if we don't mind continuing that.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make.
This is a public hearing, though,
Oh,
should we want to have
sorry.
anybody in the public, just to kind of comment on this one?
I'm not seeing it. The
Don't
only,
see anybody in the audience? No?
Mr. Chair, the only other question I have is, I know that we have our next planning board meeting isn't until August. Yeah, never mind. I don't know.
I know you guys might be thinking,
Yeah, the only thing we're running into is we're not able to get a building permit for some reason until this is passed, even though the building permit is kind of on the interior of construction, so all of that's kind of halted
yeah,
while we're waiting for this, and unfortunately, we've been working on this for a couple of months because of the July 4th. I guess you guys didn't have the meeting at that
Right.
time either.
yeah. Summer's-
The question would be is, would this be something that you would consider doing administratively if they provided a revised plan and, as chair, if you kind of.
I'll
would
leave that
review-
up to the rest of the board members.
I would suggest we could approve this with the condition that the new drop-off plan has to be approved by staff and the chair.
That would be amazing.
Okay,
That sounds-
And the landscaping we have to check in on, right?
Yes, we'll
What was
check
that,
on the
Jess?
landscaping.
We didn't hear you, Jess.
Oh, you didn't hear me? Sorry, I was saying in the landscaping we have to check in on, yeah?
yeah, yep,
Yes,
same time, yep.
thank you.
Okay,
Okay, so
Yep.
then I'm going to make a motion to approve the request for a minor engineering change for property located at 22A Street. To
Done. Yeah, do we have to close the public hearing?
No, this is
There's not a
a
public hearing.
discussion because
Okay,
it's a
great.
minor engineering change.
Thank you.
So approve the request for a minor engineering change for property located at 22A Street to reconfigure the site's parking layout for the installation of a new play area and additional site improvements as reflected on the red line plan entitled 22A Street, Burlington, Mass. 01803, prepared by David Sisson Architecture, PC, dated June 11, 2024, consisting of one sheet, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as amended.
Second.
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be working with you.
Yes.
We'll be in touch.
Okay. Section 8, item 8A. This is a public hearing, now it's a public hearing. An application for approval of special permit pursuant to 4.2.2.24 Performances Theater or Center of the zoning bylaws, 75 Middlesex Turnpike, that's the Burlington Mall. Flip Circus LLC is the applicant. Hello.
Hello.
Introduce yourselves there.
I have a,
And just make sure when you guys are speaking, just to kind of pull the microphone closest to you. That would be great, thank you.
okay.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Justin Feldhaus. As you guys know, I've been here a few times.
Hi, Jesse.
Representative of Burlington Mall. I'm joined with Lauren Dallas, who's also with Burlington Mall, and Shirley.
Yes.
I've messed her name up a few times. I apologize. Is a representative of Flip Circus. We also have a representative.
Does Shirley have a last name? I'm sorry.
Larible.
Okay, you want to spell that for the,
L-A,
yep, right up.
Hi there.
L-A-R-I-B-L-E.
Okay.
Great. And Carlos just came online, if you just want to introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
And
My
can
name
you
is
introduce yourself, Carlos, please?
Sure, my name is Carlos de la Garza, and I'm Director of Business for Flip Circus. And I'm joined, I'm sure if you already met Justin Feldhaus and Lauren and Shirley there from the mall and from Flip Circus as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure who will be talking, but maybe if you can describe what we're looking to do here today for the special permit?
Sure. Well, like I said, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to come and ask for a special permit for our event. Flip Circus is where magic, wonder, and excitement come alive under the big top. It's been entertaining audiences across the United States with acrobats, displays of strength, mesmerizing artistry, performers from all over the world. It brings a great form of family entertainment to the community. It brings smiles to faces to young kids, to grandparents, to parents. and it's a wonderful addition to many towns that we have been in. Flip Circus itself was founded in 2022 by Circus Vasquez, which is a parent company of Flip Circus. And Circus Vasquez began in Mexico City in 1969. And in 2006, they ventured into the United States and brought the show here and have been entertaining since then. The owners were all artists, and they're all third and fourth generation circus family. And they've, put all their effort into the imagination and creativity of this event and into the professionalism and quality of what they do. It's a wonderful organization. And like I have mentioned, we've been performing, Flip Circus itself has been performing in the Northeast in several locations there in Massachusetts, such as Berlin, Massachusetts, North Attleboro, Hyannis. We're going to be going to Auburn, Massachusetts as well, and other locations close by, such as Salem, New Hampshire, and Hartford, Connecticut. In these cities, we've been this is our second year in most of these cities, and we've gone before their planning boards and their select boards and have approved, 2 times already or 3 times in some of those locations. And so, like I was saying, one of the main things is that it's a nice family event, sit-down event, and it, there's no alcohol. It's very clean, and it's a great addition to the city. It brings a lot of foot traffic into the mall, and it improves the foot traffic because people are coming to the show. They sit down, they watch the show, and when they're done, they get out and they want to go out and eat and have dinner. So, a lot of the businesses within the mall or the surrounding area are going to have an uptick in their business, and as well, more exposure. People are going to know who's there and what's there.
Okay.
And so, I'm sorry, can you hear? This thing is breaking up. I don't know if it's me or
We can still
echoes
hear
a
you.
lot.
We can hear you.
Okay,
We're
great.
talking, yep. We're good.
Okay, it was just echoing a lot and it reverberated. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, the break.
And so, in addition to the history with the towns there in Massachusetts itself, Simon Properties, we've been working with them since 2021 on several events, and we've held over 30 events at their centers. And most of those events were repeat events. So something that did happen there, we went to the mall, we had our event, it was very successful, ran smoothly, improved their foot traffic, and improved, the quality of entertainment for the community there. And so with that, success there, it's a great addition. It's something that we plan to do every year in many of those locations. And so in addition to that, within the community itself, we do research and we partner with several nonprofits there within the community. And what we do is we provide tickets for them to give out to families that maybe possibly don't have the means to afford to go to the show, or kids that are foster children or at-risk kids. We want them to come and see the show as well. So we don't want just the ones that can afford it to see it. We want everyone to be included and be able to see the show. And so that's our goal. We want to implement ourselves into your community. We want to be part of your community. We want to bring something that is fun and clean and, entertaining that we can bring to you all every year. And have you all know that you all can count on us to provide this, great event.
Chairman Gaffney, if I
Yes.
may.
Please.
Thank you, Carlos. And just to take one step back, I guess, and let, people who are watching the planning board and listening to this, part of the economic development strategy has been looking at, smaller interventions to help support businesses with that, throughout our community, not only town centers we've been talking about, with the signs and so forth, but also in the larger commercial district. And we've seen some turnover in the restaurants, and we wanted to really kind of focus in on how to improve the activation and enhance the existing foot traffic at the Simon Mall, which is our largest, commercial tax property contributor to the town. And we had talked about how vital it is to sustain them over time. So we had looked at different types of entities that could come up and pop up. And we found that, through the process and working with, our zoning and our inspector of buildings, that there was not a clean pathway for special events in the mall parking lot, in the BG parking, or in the BG districts alone. And what we determined was that a special permit would be needed for even a temporary 2-week period, because this use, as a performing arts use, still requires a special permit. So our planning director, our inspector of buildings, town council, myself, have worked to support this entity, Flip Circus, which was serendipitous, because shortly after we were talking about, parking activation, Carlos, Shirley, and Justin came to us with this, concept that could work here. It's a smaller venue, so it's a proof of concept that, we're looking to kind of introduce, see if we can, see what works, what doesn't, and then also take some metrics and benchmarks for the business activation, and what we anticipate to be additional sales and additional foot traffic to the mall. So that is kind of a precursor to what led us here today.
Thank you. Okay, staff.
I kind of have been working with Melissa on this as well, and so I think, this is kind of a pilot, a proof of concept to see, how this would work with the mall. The mall, we are not concerned with parking. The mall has over 1,400 parking spaces. And so, we are assuming that not every single person is going to come in their own car. So, I'm not concerned with parking. And I think it'll be interesting. Don't have really any major concerns.
Okay. Yes. Go ahead,
Liz,
Melissa.
and that you brought it to DCM twice.
That's
now.
true. That is
DCM, for the folks that don't know DCM.
So we have, every 2 weeks off planning board meeting weeks, we have development coordination meetings with all of the permitting departments, building, conservation, fire, police, everybody. And they have been there twice. We have comments from all of those departments that have been added into the special permit. And so that is also to be
Okay.
noted.
All right, let's start her off. Let's go, Ms. Natola.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I fully support it. I've been wishing for a permanent, performing arts theater in the area just to bring traffic, but I think this concept will work great in that area, and I think it'll do exactly what Melissa has said it would do for the mall and for all the restaurants, and I fully support it. I think we should do more of it.
Okay. Ms. Sutherland.
I'm excited for this. I think it'll be great. I think my main concern will be the traffic flow. So whatever we can do to direct folks of maybe, obviously we can't dedicate an entry, but encourage those who are attending this to kind of, come in a certain entry, go through a certain flow. That would hopefully be less disruptive to, traffic happening at the mall. But I think families will love this. And I'm also thrilled to hear that you all partner with nonprofits or other entities in order to enable those who may not be able to afford to go to the show.
Okay.
Great idea.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Covino.
Sure. So how long are we talking about? 2 weeks stay?
From the 6th to the 17th of September. Yes, so just
Okay. And
11 days.
1 or 2 shows a day?
It's one show Monday to Friday at 7 p.m. and then 3 shows on Saturday at 1, 4, and 9. Sorry, 7, I don't know, it's done by 9, that was where I was going. And then on Sunday, it's actually 12, 3, and 6, so everyone's gone by 8. The way that it's structured is that it's live entertainment for the whole family. So grandparents can come with their grandchildren and enjoy a show. It's I'm 8th-generation circus, so of course, it's in my veins, and it's something that I love dearly. But I think it's very good for the family because it's something that they can do together. Most of them come in cars all together. It's this experience that then they go out to have dinner, they go out to have an event, or to do something, both seeing the circus thereafter and before. So it's this whole thing, they go to the mall, they might have some dinner, they go see a show, then they go home, and not having alcohol on site, and with you having to pay an entrance fee unless you're nonprofit, and if you're a nonprofit or if you're a child, you're not allowed to be at the show if you're not accompanied from an adult. And then we have guards at the door that check your tickets, the same thing, the ushers inside, so there won't be teenagers lingering after. And we do have plans for parking as well, so we plan to have various parking assistants to kind of indicate people where they're supposed to go, to help them crosswalk, to see if they need additional parking, which would be fantastic that we get to that point, but to help them guide to an additional place. But they should be out of the circus area at 8. We have this experience where people have come to see the show, and we're currently at a Simon's property, and they were also nervous about us coming at the beginning, but we pride ourselves in doing things well and being proper and trying to keep everything well organized and that everything looks clean. Like if you were to fly a drone on top of the organization, you're going to see all the trailers behind there parked well, the circus parked well. I'm actually very, very proud to work for this company because we all really try to do things well. Carlos is amazing, and so everything that he promises you guys is because we will complete it.
Good, thank you. And Justin, I'm sure that your security people and the Burlington Police Department will help with traffic flow if that's necessary? Is that what you're assuming, or?
That's right. Yeah, Carlos actually has a plan. Well,
Can't hear you, Justin.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Carlos has a plan to have his own parking attendants. You guys have your own security. We have the mall security as well, and we've been coordinating with the police on this.
Okay, and I assume there seems to be enough shows so that after the first couple, you realize whether you needed additional or you had too many or whatever, so you could.
Yeah, yes,
Right, right.
exactly. And I just also want to point out, too, that this is in September, where we have less than 50% of the traffic that we would have
Good
at
point.
November or December.
Thank you, I'm all set.
Thank you,
Mr.
Ms.
Chairman.
LaRue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is a wonderful idea. I think you're probably going to be very, very successful. I think people in town and in the surrounding towns are going to love it, and you'll probably be very busy. I do have a few questions, but nothing of great concern. For Justin, currently at this part of your parking lot, there's fencing and some trailer-like things in there. I don't know if they're trailers or dumpsters or what they are. Will they be removed before the circus comes?
Yes, yeah, those are there as temporary construction for tenants that are under construction now inside the building. Those will be removed to make room for the tent and all of the
So
facilities.
on this plan where it says RVs, that's where the circus RVs and trailers and things will go, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Are the generators temporary that will also be removed at the end of the circus?
Yes,
Okay. What about the salt shed? Is that going to stay?
that will stay.
Darn.
And my, I understand.
The temporary salt shed,
ugly.
right?
It's there at the request of the Conservation Committee.
They requested a salt shed
Yes,
on your property?
yes.
No, they wanted it covered.
Yeah, they didn't request a
want
salt
the
shed on.
salt.
Salt
Well,
shed.
they required it.
They required that it
that
be
way.
covered.
They didn't require a salt shed on your property, right? Conservation did not require a salt shed on your
Sounds
property.
like they did.
No, they required,
They required the.
you wanted salt, they wanted it
We had
covered.
salts in a particular
Correct?
location.
Yes.
Like in a pile?
There was a pile of salt
Oh,
that was
yeah.
not covered.
They
saw it
Conservation
covered,
came
yeah.
to us and said, this needs to be covered, it needs to be
Yes.
covered with this type of structure.
Right.
We worked
I-
with the building department,
Yeah.
got the permit, got the correct type of structure, put it in place.
So it's
So in
my-
terms of this circus, it's going to stay where it is, but Flip Circus has a plan to barricade it off
Okay.
with
Okay.
temporary fencing so
Okay.
that people
Great.
can't go near it.
Good, thank you.
So, and I know this has nothing to do with Flip Circus, but, you know, you're here, and the salt shed is ugly. So it's my understanding that the salt shed is temporary.
Mm-hmm.
When will it be removed?
When it stops snowing. No, I don't have a good answer
Well,
for
that's
that
why
at
I'm
this
asking,
time.
because
Yeah,
the salt shed normally is for winter.
that's
We're
correct.
not going to have snow anytime soon, and the salt shed is there. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's there year-round, how am I supposed to consider that temporary?
Because it could be picked up and moved. I hear your point.
Perhaps you could work with staff to try and find a way to make it less ugly. That have nothing to do with the circus. Circus is great.
Understand.
Circus shouldn't have to look at the ugly salt shed either. So,
Do your other properties have salt sheds on them?
Everywhere where it's required.
Everywhere it's required, because,
By state law, meaning in Massachusetts, absolutely is required by state law. In New Hampshire and Connecticut, I
that
believe
it's
as
in a
well.
shed. Yeah.
It's that it's this type of structure.
so that, let me understand this. So the state law requires you to have a salt shed on mall property?
Anywhere that we have material
If
stored.
So if you're
Salt,
dumping
they
a
have to
salt pile,
cover it.
then
Yes.
they said you need a salt shed. But there's
Correct.
no requirement that you have a pile of salt dumped on your property, is that correct?
There is not, well, there is from an operational standpoint. We have 83 acres that we need to take care of and make safe during snowstorms. So in order for us to properly service our property, we need to have a certain amount of product on site.
Really?
And there's no place interior to, not inside the building, but, trucks drive in to certain parts of the mall, and they make deliveries in there. I don't really know what goes on beyond that, because I
Yeah.
can't see in there. There's no way to put that interior?
Because of the size of the type of equipment that we have that services the property, again, because it's so large, we need to have a structure that's that size, and it has to be in a location like that. And that's a location that we own, that we're able to, because I know you may be thinking Macy's, we want to keep it away from.
No, I understand.
Yeah, we want to keep it away from other areas that are sensitive from a conservation standpoint as well.
Okay. I do think there is a way to make it less offensive.
Okay.
Maybe just an attractive fence with a very large gate that can be opened when
Right.
you need to remove the material, because it's,
And let's have that as a minor engineering change before the board, for that to happen, because you took up parking spaces to put that there, right? So
We did.
Yeah.
you did, so that's a
We
minor.
have a surplus of parking spaces,
Right.
but I understand.
But you have, there's parking spaces are on the plan as parking spaces, and not up for a salt shed.
right,
Okay.
so.
Having spent, just to give you the benefit of my experience, having spent 40 years in the commercial snow plowing business and done malls like Pheasant Lane and whatever, this is normal to have some kind of structure there, so that, are you using salt or calcium chloride?
Salt.
Salt. Okay, even worse. So salt doesn't leach into the ground and create an environmental nuisance.
I understand.
Before, it used to be you couldn't use salt, you could
Right.
just use sand.
Right.
And now sand is considered a hazardous substance because it plugs up all the storm drains and everything.
Right.
And then we
Hold on.
end up with other problems.
Okay.
But
So-
it's not abnormal. There's actually two in the town center.
Oh,
Yeah, so yeah,
where?
which we
So-
provided
and I don't-
landscaping and gates and things like that around it,
And I'm
Yeah,
not saying.
You can make them look prettier, definitely, sure.
which.
Yes.
all depends, right?
I'd be happy to work with the planning
So we
board.
want you to talk to Caleb
Yep.
Monday to get the process started for a minor engineering change so that we can codify what's there and put a fence around it. And I don't mean an ugly chain link fence. I mean something
Nice
that looks
wooden-
pretty with a big gate so that you can get trucks in and out. We'll figure it out. If you could please call Caleb on Monday to just get the ball rolling, that would be great.
I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Now, back to the circus. Tons of fun. I also am very happy that you're going to be partnering with local nonprofits. Have you identified someone or an entity to work with, or do you need help with that?
Do you want me
Oh, I think Carlos is trying to answer.
Yeah, I've given Carlos a few names of prominent local nonprofits.
Okay,
And I'm
great.
sure that he has a few others in mind as well.
Great. Do you have any idea the number of tickets that you'll be providing over that 14-day period?
We have a capacity of 836 places, and we give 150 to nonprofits for each show.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
I really appreciate that. Last question. am I correct in understanding there are no animals as part of the circus?
Yes, there's acrobats, clowns, jugglers, artists from all over the world, but there are no animals.
Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Thank you.
Mr. Tolle, did you have additional comment?
No.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so, yeah, I would second Member LaRue on the salt shed. Again, I think that should have come as a minor engineering change because it's on parking and now it's a different situation there. And I'm surprised that the conservation wanted you to put it there because we couldn't put one over near the DPW because of the impact of the watershed over there, which I think if it's runoff, then it goes right into the watershed. So I'm kind of confused on how that developed. But one of my concerns is, I think on the nonprofit, you both have them in mind, but I don't know how local you are, Justin, but we have one in Burlington that is very prominent. It's called People Helping People. Is that on your list? Great, thank you. That was kind of one in mind, and I'm sure there's others there as well. So as long as you had a Burlington one, that's great for that. My concern is kind of the traffic coming out of Middlesex Turnpike. When I initially heard about this, I said, oh, great. It's on the Macy's property like the last tent sale you had with the rugs with Macy's. And you can see that from the highway, so when you get off the highway, you know where to get off that first exit and go down, and the traffic's fine, you can work it around. This one being in that kind of that back corner where you don't see that from the highway, what I'd like to see is, again, I'm not a big sign guy because I think there's too many, but some wayfinding signs to have the circus parking not be on the first exit because they're going to go down to Macy's, right? Not on the second one, because if you look on, if you wouldn't mind showing the way the traffic goes, and again, this is local knowledge for the folks that aren't familiar with it, and Betsy, you're nodding your head here, as you come down that second ramp, I'll let Caleb hold that up. I'm talking about the second ramp is here.
Here, okay.
The second,
Not this way.
yeah, if you want to blow up the second ramp.
You're referring to this one at the light?
Yep, yep,
Keep on going, now you're going to go
down
down.
into the mall.
You've got to go down the mall, kind of the center. So that intersection right there is very difficult. So it actually comes from a low area to a high area to a low area again. People are coming in and out right and left to go there. And I think there's a speed hump there too, right?
Yeah, there is.
So we don't want the folks going into there because you got traffic going straight, you got traffic taking rights, you got traffic taking lefts up the ramp. So I think what you want to say is another sign there to say circus parking straight down to the third one, right? So if you kind of, Caleb, if you can kind of.
That's never busy either.
That's never busy. It's a great way to come in. That's going to be, let's say, dedicated to the circus. Pull in there and have the wayfinder say circus parking here and then pulling in and then coming around. That would be my desire.
I would have went in through Kohl's myself.
Yeah, once you pass it, because once you see the tent, the person's going to want to take a right, right? And that's going to be down the middle one, and that's where we don't want them to go, in my opinion.
Can I just add, while I think that's well-intentioned, I think the majority of our shoppers and circus attendees will still come in those other entrances because they'll come from 128 likely, and they won't make it to that third entrance.
Unless there's a sign there that says circus parking straight.
At the second entrance, there's a sign saying.
Circus parking straight.
Straight ahead and then next right.
We can certainly do that. I think our plan was to push all of the circus traffic, out of that area and go the other way, but we can certainly look at the
Oh, I see what
traffic
you're saying.
plan that
So
way.
you come in that way. If you're going to do that, I would put a detail there, a police detail, right at the bottom of the ramp then.
Yeah, you could do that.
And I think a sign of some kind at that intersection too would help to people know exactly where they're going. We have a lot more traffic that comes in without police details during November and December, and they make their way just fine. And I think once they see that sign that says everyone needs to go this way, I mean, we're talking about 100 cars, really, at the peak of it, which is not very many in terms of what we have.
So you said
for the property.
100 cars
That would come for a show.
for 800 people?
For a show.
If
for a
they're-
show,
Well,
okay.
that's, go ahead.
ahead.
Maximum,
Yeah, well, the maximum capacity is 836. If they were to come at every show, I would be ecstatic.
Yeah, sure.
But unfortunately, that's not what happens on a daily basis. Sometimes we have from 200 to maybe 400 people coming. And like I said before, they're usually coming as a family, so 4 people per car. So yeah, it's more considerable to think around 100 cars than, 400 cars.
Well, that's just my comment. I'm just one person on the board that, again, with local knowledge, because I grew up right around the corner. So I experienced that quite a bit.
There's hardly no I was just at the mall for the phone. I got a new phone.
Oh, yeah, with your new number,
A
yeah.
couple of things, but I'm saying, if you go straight down near Macy's, I always go in down near there, because there's no like, you could go walk in any
Right.
way you want.
Yeah, the
over
problem is, I
there.
think-
People are going to be coming off the highway.
Yeah.
If they're coming from Burlington, they're going to go in that way.
Yeah, but most people, a lot
But
of people.
they'll be coming
come
off
from
the highway.
Burlington.
I'm assuming it wasn't a Macy's because it's not a rug sale, but it's not Simon's property, but a Macy's property over there. Is that why it's over this area versus Macy's? In the Macy's
Yeah,
parking lot?
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why. Aside from the fact that the physical location just makes more sense
Yeah.
for this type use, the ownership is definitely
Yeah,
part of that as well.
Yeah, understood. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I've lost track of which.
So I don't know, if, just from a board standpoint, again, this is more local knowledge with traffic and things like
I
that.
think
just me.
it's adjustable, Bill, too. I mean, if it doesn't,
If they see it,
if they see it,
they can put it there. I think they do, I think that's, yeah, I think there's, right at that.
One of your security.
On our part, we would do anything possible to keep the traffic flowing and to keep everything
Yep.
operating smoothly. Our intention is always to be well presented and represent ourselves correctly, because that ensures us to come not only to Burlington another year, but to go to everywhere else. Anything incorrect or anything bad that we do represents us, and we don't want that. So anything that we can do to have the traffic flowing, having our staff try to help navigate traffic, we will do, and everything that we need to adjust or accommodate, we will, so that we can operate smoothly and that there's no problems.
I would think that Bill's probably right, especially on the weekend, when you're
Weekend,
really busy.
probably the weekend, yeah.
You're probably
Yeah.
going to need to have somebody there, a cop or a security person,
Yep.
directing traffic and giving people a
Yep.
chance. Otherwise, it's going to back up, and then it can create gridlock there. I've seen that complete gridlock when there's nothing like
Because
this going on.
people are taking left up the ramp.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They're coming out,
Yes.
they're taking the left up the ramp.
Yeah, to your point, it's the exiting of
Right.
the property is when that happens. And
Right.
that generally happens only during Christmas time.
But this is on
Yeah.
top of, yeah, so yeah.
But I understand the concern. It's absolutely something that's top of mind for us as well.
Okay.
And
So
we'll
if
make
you
sure
can
that we stay on
provide
top of it.
a security person or police officer, whichever, to direct traffic, and maybe it is indeed when people are leaving that it's more important.
Right, which is exactly why we wanted to
Yep.
take them and push them out towards that third entrance.
Okay.
That third side entrance, exit, I suppose it is.
So when you take them out the third entrance, they're going to have to come out and take a right only when they want to get back to the highway.
Yeah.
They can go down Cambridge Street and go down the other way.
You want them to go
they
down
can- or they can
Lexington
come out
Street,
the other side.
Mall Road?
Mall Road, I think you
You want to have going back up Mall Road?
They could do that if they're going to come back up through 128.
Or they could go.
But we're talking about 8 o'clock,
They could go to
9
Yeah,
o'clock
there's
at
no
night.
traffic.
Yeah,
No
they can
traffic.
shop, hopefully.
Keep in mind, this is off-peak versus
Yeah.
what the mall
Okay.
is
need.
typically
I'm
doing.
All right.
willing to let them.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
It's fine, we'll see how it goes.
All right.
plus we have that super adaptive traffic.
This is a public hearing.
Yeah, it is a public hearing, so I'll open up to anybody that's online or in the audience. Seeing none? Okay.
Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second,
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Cavino.
yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make another motion to approve the request of Carlos de la Garza of Flip Circus LLC for a temporary special permit pursuant to Section 4.2.2.24, Performance Theater or Center of Article 4 of the Town of Burlington zoning bylaws to permit a traveling circus to be known as Flip Circus for property located in the general business and aquifer districts at 75 Middlesex Turnpike, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached.
Second,
Gaffney.
Yes.
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Thank you very much, and good luck. We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's exciting.
When did tickets go on sale?
Carlos.
No, when, I think he has to release them.
Carlos.
Release them.
Oh, he's
Yes,
muted.
you're muted, Carlos.
We're excited to have you, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone.
Great idea, I think.
Great idea to bring people.
Okay.
Great idea.
We're very, very, very excited and very thankful.
I think you're going to have a great audience from around this area compared to the others, Elwood Square and down in, down on Solomon Pond. I think this is going to be a much greater attraction for you. So,
I really hope so. We are looking forward to it.
great.
We are
Thank
as
you.
well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's go to minutes. We have minutes from April 18th, May 2nd, June 6th. Anybody have looked at them, want to take them together? Anybody have any issues with them?
I looked at them, I can take them together. I don't know about everybody else.
Ready?
I'll take them together. yeah.
Okay. Jessica, okay with that? May I have a motion?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes of April 18th, May 2nd, and June 6th of 2024.
Second.
Gaffney,
Yes.
Sutherland,
Yes.
Natola,
Yes.
LaRue,
Yes.
Covino.
Yes.
Great, thanks. Other matters, discussion? Anything?
Actually, I do have one
Yes.
thing. So,
Yep.
this relates to the minutes, that I will be sending you guys a couple from last year, that we are kind of we're kind of just doing a backlog
sure.
of things that may have been missed. So I've gotten a couple of them, and so just when I send them out to you before the next meeting, that when you see 2023 instead of
Okay.
24, that's not a
Okay.
mistake.
Okay.
That is what that is. So if you need to, and you can watch all the planning board meetings on the BCAT government YouTube page. So if you need to kind of remind yourself what was discussed, just to give you guys all a heads up.
Thank you. Okay, correspondence? None? Reports from town council?
Nope.
No? Subcommittee report, Sculpture Park, please.
So the Sculpture Park just finished its 2024 installation. There are now 5 new sculptures in the Sculpture Park for everyone to see, and they will be there until summer of 2024. They're really cool, and I know you're all going to love them. The pigs will also be staying on the common until the end of the summer. I also wanted to quickly add one thing that's not in here. I am on the subcommittee for the police station building
Oh, yeah,
committee.
yeah.
I reached out to the police chief because I haven't heard anything from them since town meeting. I understand after speaking with him, there's been a lot of action behind the scenes, but a lot of it has been working on things internal to the building. And I reminded them that anything external, the exterior of the building, and certainly parking and traffic and circulation on the site is of great interest to planning board. They acknowledge that. It is likely that the next meeting of that committee will probably not happen until September due to people not being
Vacation.
available in the summer.
Any word on how much property they're going to take for the Sculpture Park?
Not yet.
Okay.
So where did they move your sculpture park to?
Nowhere
Well, we
yet.
haven't moved anything yet. That is up to the select board, and I am working with them. I will say that the reaction to the pigs on the common has been so positive
Oh, my
that I am
gosh.
hopeful
Yep.
that the select board will feel comfortable relocating sculptures to locations similar to those that the pigs are,
That would
where
be
the
good.
pigs are, because they, so far, have not caused any problem. We'll see how it all goes on Celebrate Burlington Day.
Yeah, I would say on your Sculpture Park and the pigs, the feedback I've gotten has been tremendous, and even from people out of town that are going through Burlington on 3A, called me up, and people I know from out of town saying, what is going on with the pigs? It's great. They really, but they really think it's a great idea.
My little pig.
Love the piggies.
I don't think you even knew it was me, did you? At
You
the
have a
parade?
little pig?
You gave it to me.
Oh, I gave you, oh, no, I knew that was you.
Oh, did you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
I don't
I
think she
gave
knew
out
it was
over
me,
100
'cause I had on a hat and
We
everything.
gave 850 pigs that day. We
Oh, I
ran
got a
out.
little,
How about middle housing? Anything on middle housing from our subcommittee? And that would be Barbara again.
I don't think I have anything new to
Okay.
report. Liz and I are working on it. It's of great importance, and I'm determined that we will go in January.
January town meeting, okay. And would that conflict with the economic development?
Yes, it will.
We tried to
Yes.
avoid that.
We tried very hard.
We will do,
The mall rezoning, we thought was going to go in September, so we purposefully wanted to wait and go in January, but then that got pushed back, so now we're both going in January.
Okay, unfinished business, none. New business, anyone? Motion, please.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Gaffney.
Yes?
Sutherland.
Yes.
Natola.
Yes.
LaRue.
Yes.
Covino.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.